farmhouse, which was a 2-story, because the one of the cheap country farmhouse is a 1.5-story. And at that point in time, the taxation was on the number of floors you had
Yes.
and the number of rooms you had. And it varied between, he got into the details of how much it cost to build the houses if you did it cheap and if you did the luxury level, dependent upon the materials you had, the local farmer. And it's quite fascinating. Certainly.
Wow.
Like I said, that's going to, I have, Wellington County Archives into this, one, but this is the second. It's quite fascinating, but I found, the head of the whole committee doing that, and each committee, did their own lengths, so there's no standardization of
Right.
this. There's little stories, there's pictures from the past, there's modern pictures, but
That's what we tried to do in this program, but it's not easy to standardize it, and it's not easy to make it 100%.
Exactly.
It doesn't work for every barn.
It doesn't work, but even if you had, okay, approximately when it was built, what
Yeah.
style is it? You know, those
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
details, unique features.
Yeah.
What do we, they were doing a little bit more about the family that owned it rather than concentrating on farm. So it's a mixture,
Right.
which I can see doing.
Have you been on our website to see
Yes, I
how?
have.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
you know what it looks like.
Yeah, which is more where I'm going from, so.
If an email came through, that's from yourself, but we have a rep in that area.
It,
I gave her.
yes, for Wellington, yes. Susan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, good.
Some of the details are in the Tweed Spears history, some are down at, Ontario 4-H, Century Farms. So I have a list.
Is there much information in Tweed's mirror on barns?
It's hit and miss, depends on what the focus of that local women's institute was. In our area, some just focused on the families and the schools, and churches, others went into detail on buildings and houses. So it's hit and miss, you almost have to go through each, women's institutes, Tweedsmuir history to have a look, see, and you know, some of them are really good resources. We had a barn building party such and such a day at so and
Yeah,
so's
yeah,
house.
yeah.
That comes in handy, sometimes just pictures, not necessarily.
And are those Tweed's mirrors all digital?
I know Wellington counties are, I'm not sure about anywhere else, I believe they are.
Are they searchable by
By
word?
topic.
Like you type in barn, will it pop up to everything that's in the barn?
I don't think so.
'Cause otherwise-
Search function is on it, it's more flip page by flip page.
Yeah, but it doesn't even have to be a search thing. You can just do a control F and put in barn and it'll find
I
all
think
the
it's
barn
more
stuff.
Just, yes.
It'll do it on PDFs. It'll do it on
It's
PDFs.
more, just pictures that just basically stand in each page. So I'm not 100% sure, I was just flipping through the ones I knew. So,
Okay, well,
and some of the local, historical clubs have actually digitized the local newspapers and all that.
Right.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
yes,
Very good.
go to the head of the class.
But I mean, it's new calls.
And did you tell them there was an exam at the end of this?
Yeah. Really fun one.
That's why I studied.
An exam. I said there's an exam at the end. Did you know that?
Well, where I was raised at Rattlesnake Point in Milton, we had a little barn that was actually owned by the Hart family. And then I moved in with my partner in Nassau, and we had an old barn.
Yeah.
That some of the Simpson family had built, although maybe 1860-ish. Well, then we decided to do some major renovation, like after John died, we did a lot of major changes and I had, John Martin, HFH come
Yep.
and do most of that work and it's still there. I'm not, but the barn's still there.
Yeah, good, good.
And my.
And where's that, whereabouts?
Hilton Campbellville area.
Milton and Campbellville, yeah.
My John Simpson was a timber frame, so we did barns all over.
Okay, okay. There's a barn, on Highway 7 near, Rockwood. And I'm forgetting the fellow's name, Ken somebody, the dairy farmer.
One of the guys that worked with us for a summer was Scott Murray. Of course, he's up here. His, Thistlewood
Okay,
barn currently, yeah.
okay, yeah, Yeah.
He's still operating.
yep. Yep. Yeah, so there are some beautiful old barns on that area.
How long was your drive up?
It was okay, uneventful. 3 hours, it's a 3 hour drive. Yeah, it's a 3 hour drive.
And you're just looking at all the burns and details.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Bad habit.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah. But I've been on the road, on this road quite a few times, so I think I've seen most of them, but it's funny, you don't even, till you're really into this, some things you don't even notice.
Well, this is it, since I started doing the research, all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm looking at houses
Yeah.
differently, barns differently, like, yep, that's an original foundation.
Yeah.
Get the high winds down your way, Lois?
Yeah,
A lot of power outages on this stuff.
oh, is that right, eh? Yeah. No, I don't think we had any power outages. We had a real good look at the solar eclipse last Monday, because I'm right in Niagara,
Oh,
right?
you would, yeah.
Yeah.
Right in the face.
We're in the blackout zone. And so now it's cloudy. We didn't really see a lot, but boy, did it get dark.
Shadows and the silence.
But the street lights came on and the solar, garden solar lights came on. It got breezy, it got cool. Actually, the temperature dropped like a rock. I was not expecting that. I didn't think it would get that dark.
You know, how many people signed up to see you online?
I actually don't know. But Emily will.
Right now.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
So can you access some of the other ones? By paying the access fee at the beginning? Cause I missed the one.
Yeah, as long as they had a virtual.
Awesome.
There's some that were just.
Yeah. It was an only person.
Okay, darn, it's great.
That day.
What was that?
It was the grassland bird conference.
Okay, I think, so I can ask, you actually do come on board.
Okay, yeah.
Just because there was like 2 farmers who said ahead of time. Presenters were not sure they wanted to come.
Right. Yeah, it says it's first.
How do you start this here? But,
Yeah.
I have some comments.
Just, there's Lori.
6 and your mom and Danielle.
Okay.
So it's not quite. 3 minutes in.
I didn't hear back. We heard back from 2 people, 3 people, I guess, who said they were gonna make it. But I didn't hear anything from anyone else.
So just waiting for your mom.
She said that there's 6 people altogether. But we have had people sign up and not show up or say
Yeah.
anything too. So,
Okay.
but if we give it a few more minutes. Are you guys all like local to the area or? Oh, okay. A bit of a drive still.
Less than an
How much is root, yeah, there of our presentation.
Cool.
Here's harder.
Echo, are you? Probably got more experience than I do with it. So, where do you live from here?
I'm in Chesley.
So you are in
45 minutes west.
Well, you're not too far from John then.
No, very close. I'm west of Chesley, he's east.
Okay, so you're the right guy to ask. Last summer, weren't you and John at the steam show or something?
Oh, yeah, Paisley Steam Show.
That's
That's the Heritage
Is it called the Bruce County?
Heritage Association. That's a big thing.
Well, you know what? I went online, I saw some video. There's like 1 million pieces of equipment there.
Oh, it's big. And they own the park. They really bought the park.
And the big storage shed they have there, is that something they own as well?
Yeah, yeah,
It's huge.
it is. It's, pretty big. Really nice big park.
Wow. Wow, interesting.
Hold on. It's going in here.
It's yeah, isn't the air conditioner on? Anyone wants tea, coffee, cookies, help yourself. There's loads of it in there, I think.
You talk-
Oh.
That does it then. I
Yeah.
better get something right.
Gosh.
On time.
Any weather? Yes, it's, no. One of the things in our customers. Sale. Better. Lost.
Those are hard to put together, actually.
They are, but when they're using the terms repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Glossary.
Yeah. Well, just as it, the gamble is also the hip. And what is a salt box extension?
Yes.
You know, things.
Yeah.
Talking about purloins and.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we talking about?
Right.
You almost need to somewhere in the front say that there's lots.
Yes, yes.
All right, I think that we're probably. To start now.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So thanks for coming, everybody. We're really glad to have you here. Hugh Fraser made the long drive up from Niagara area to speak to us today, so we're very excited to have him. I think that he's going to share, but he's actually written a couple books, and he's the president of the Ontario Barn Preservation Group, and very knowledgeable about barns, I think. I'm Emily, and you probably all know or have met Lori at the front table. So we work for Gray Agricultural Services, which puts on the big long list of winter courses that you see pasted along the wall there. This is our third last course. We're just about wrapping up for the winter season, and then we'll be into other events for other organizations throughout the summer. In front of you, there is an evaluation. We would love it if you could all fill that out and hand it to us before you leave today. The most important thing on there is that it helps us gather ideas from you guys on what we should plan topics around next year. Because yeah, we want to know what you guys want to learn. So please take the time to give that back to us. And other than that, I think we'll let you take it away.
Good, okay. Well, I'm really pleased to be here today. I'll just have some opening sort of remarks here. I'd like to thank Emily for inviting me as president of Ontario Barn Preservation. That's not the reason necessarily that I'm here, but we also have Steve here, who is our regional rep for this area for OBP. So if you got anything you want to talk about barns, Steve's your guy. He knows a lot about old barns. I don't know if anybody knows Steve or not, but he's actually been filling out your old barn study, which we're going to be talking about here today. So he has a lot of knowledge in that. I was happy that Emily let us postpone this until into April. I had knee replacement surgery in the fall, and I wasn't quite sure how late I was or how I was going to be for getting around and driving and all those kinds of things. So pleased to report that I'm back. I've had 3 knees replaced now, one of them twice. So hopefully this will be the end of the knee replacement surgery. Yeah, so this is going to be recorded, I think, today, so I hope everybody's okay with that. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have a little bit of a link to it, to our Ontario Barn Preservation website at some point so that we can, if people want to review it or whatever. So just a little background on me, how I ended up kind of where we're at with here. So my background is I'm actually grew up on a dairy farm. Southwestern Quebec, actually. So I'm a transplanted Quebecois, except that I'm not a Francophone. I don't even speak French, which was one of the more embarrassing things in my whole life, that I don't speak French. One regret in my life that I'm not bilingual. So I'm also an agricultural engineer. I went to the University of Guelph. I worked for the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs for my entire career. I've been on thousands of farms across Ontario of all sorts. So you name the crop, or you name the animal, you name the insect, and I've been on a farm that raised them. So there's nothing that I haven't seen out there. And there's some strange operations out there. Does anybody know what a bird banger is? Okay, so bird bangers are used to scare away birds away from eating crops, mostly grapes, cherries, and
Sweet corn.
sweet corn is a big one. But 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a group of an Ontario farm organization that has problems with birds. And I bet you if I gave you 20 guesses, you'd never guess what farm organization that was. And I actually spoke to the fish farmers of Ontario. It's not called the fish farmers, but the fish farmers. So they have trouble with herons, seagulls, kingfishers, and things like that. So there's a lot of strange groups out there. So I retired in 2015, started working as a consultant, mostly working on issues of rural urban issues, not so much a big problem up in Markdale, but a big problem down near Toronto, Hamilton, Niagara, big problem. So I had a lot of mediation experience. And some of these stories you just can't make up. Just can't make up some of the things that I've seen. So actually my job right now is that I'm a sustainability auditor for the grape and wine industry. So I go out to vineyards, wineries, all kinds of things, doing these sustainability audits. And then in 2019, I wrote a book, and that's kind of how my entry into Ontario barn preservation. And so this book was just a lifelong passion that I wanted to write about barns. And that's how I got into it. And this particular barn is called a swing beam barn. They're a very interesting barn. Not many around in the Grey County area, just because of the time that the county was settled. But I have a friend of mine who some people might know, Ken Mitchell. He's a beef farmer up near Owen Sound. And his barn is a swing beam barn, and I'm going to include it in my next book. So there are some up here. And actually a couple of barns, there's one, what's that place on Highway 6 south of Owen Sound? I'm trying to think, starts with a D. Durham. And there's a swing beam barn back in there built in the 1850s. Very, very interesting. So a swing, well, that's not the topic here today, but it's basically if this was your barn, okay, length this way, width, you'd come in the big doors at the side wall, and up on your right there would be this beam that would, or right or left, that would run across the barn, complete width with no posts under it at all, clear span. and it was used for, it was beside the threshing floor. So it gave lots of room to thresh wheat, which was the big crop in Ontario back in the day. And, but it could also allow you to unhitch your horses and swing them around underneath the beam and get them back out of the barn. Very hard to back up a wagon with horses. I'm old enough to remember actually driving a team of horses when I was a kid. So I can tell you it's hard to back up anything with horses. So yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then in 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, I joined OBP, and then I became a director, and then I drew the short straw last year to become president. And we'll see what happens this coming year. Our annual meeting is next weekend, a week today. So the background on this whole thing that we call Your Old Barn Study, and we say your because it's your barn. We think that it's better to try to record a whole bunch of old barns out there by unleashing an army of people who know their own barns, own their own barns, and they record those barns online. So that's why we call it your. And it's old barns. We're trying to record as many old barns as we possibly can before they all disappear. And OBP defines an old barn as anyone built before 1961. Now, there's a couple of you in the room that were born before 1961, and I'm one of them. And so I guess we're officially old. So that's that. And that's about the time, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, when farming really started to change in Ontario. The barns became different. We started seeing trusses to hold up the roof and the whole structural thing. We saw pole barns coming in. We saw steel barns coming in. Agriculture changed a lot. We had the quota system come in for dairy cattle and the poultry industry. So things really changed in the 60s. And really cash cropping started then. A lot of corn, more corn, beans, and everything. So many would say old barns should only be ones that are built in the 1800s, but there's a lot of really interesting barns built after 1900 as well. So we all know that barns are disappearing quickly. Even in Grey County, they're disappearing quickly. And it's no surprise, it's because of urban expansion and less need for some of these old barns. These old barns have other purposes. So we know we can't, so at OBP, our motto is to save old barns. And we know we can't save them all. It's impossible to save them all, and nor should we try to save every barn. Some barns just don't lend themselves to being saved. Our best guesstimates are that the number of barns out there, and I haven't been able to find anything in the literature that says this, but we think the number of barns peaked around 1900 at about 500,000 barns across Ontario, so 500,000. The census of 1891 said that there were, I think it was 475,000 barns or something. And so more got built, but then a lot started coming down, even in 1900. So maybe around 500,000 barns. But saving barns isn't always about keeping them up. So we know that old barns can be repurposed into businesses, homes. They can become wedding venues, all kinds of different things. And so, but another way to save them is to save them in the digital world. That's the way everything's going. So we created Your Old Barn Study so that we can try to save as many barns as we can in the digital world. So by having good information about those barns, good pictures, good descriptors, and into a database that can be searchable and usable. There's going to be, and there already is, smart software out there right now where you can put information that's in a spreadsheet or in some form, you can put it into the software and it'll actually recreate the old barn right in front of your eyes. I know it sounds crazy, but there is, and in the future, you'll be able to, take a picture of a barn and software will actually recreate that barn and actually put a plan together for it. There's already stuff out there that can do that. Interestingly enough, when I wrote this book, I had a friend of mine build do a plan of a barn, a swing beam barn. Because I wanted to display I want to show what it looked like. And so in this software, you can walk into the barn and look around in the barn. You've seen demonstrations. That's our ultimate goal, is to be able to actually walk into a barn that's no longer standing and actually take you on a tour inside that barn. And so a funny little anecdote to that, he actually put together, he said, "Did you see your picture in the barn?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I see my picture in the barn. I put a picture of you in the barn. And sure enough, inside the barn, he had taken a picture of me from the past and he put it on the wall in this digital image. And there it was inside the barn. So, you could actually do crazy things like that, right? So if your grandfather built the barn, you could put a little picture of your grandfather inside that barn and people could turn around and see it. So, I mean, those are crazy things, but that's one thing we'd like to be able to do. So after studying more than 200 swing beam barns, just in precise detail for my book, and I measured every one and I took photos of every one and I looked through them very, very detailed and schematics on every one. I can tell you that there are not two barns alike anywhere out there. And that goes with whether it's a swing beam barn or a pole barn or everything else. Every single barn is different. And so you can be assured that if you have a barn, it's unique. Nobody else has got one like it. So barns tell us a lot about the rural fabric of Ontario. Until 1961, really, if you think about it, barns were the biggest and the tallest and the oldest structures in Ontario. Long before all the cities got big and everything, barns were the biggest thing around. I mean, you had a big barn that was 30 feet high. That was unbelievably big. So barns can tell us an awful lot. And so today we're going to walk you through the software to show you how to actually record things in your own barn. And so if you got any questions at all as we're going through, please stop us if you don't understand something or you need some clarification, please let us know. So Emily is going to be entering information about her barn, which is over at Clarksburg. Right, over at Clarksburg. She has a beautiful old barn, still working. She has sheep in it and that's it. There's nothing else but sheep and
Cattle in one
got some
corner.
cattle as well. And so I've been in there. I met with Emily about 3 weeks ago. And so she's going to enter stuff live as we're going through. So this is our website, OBP website. And so some of you will be more technically adept than others, but Emily's going to go through in here and she's going to go through, I think it's under resources.
Yep.
Yeah, so under resources, there's a whole bunch of things here, right? But one of them is your old barn study. And as soon as you click on that, it'll take you right to the survey, okay? Or study, I should say. And so, if you click this, it'll help you start the barn. We'll do this, but I want you to actually, she's going to click on this little thing. We won an award for this software through the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario. And so there's a little short video here. Hopefully it'll show up. I think it's 1.5 minutes or something.
I'm just wondering if I should check that this is going to, should catch the audio through the speaker here anyway, right?
Yeah, I think it will, should, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Technical.
Sorry, everybody.
We've never done this before, so this is just how it, kind of winging it a bit here. So while waiting for Emily to get that up here, I kind of feel like I have a bit of a connection to this area here. Our daughter is a doctor in Owen Sound. Her husband is an engineer, and he just took a job at Chapman's. So he's now their IT, one of their IT guys at Chapman's. And I remember who was the original owner of Chapman's? Who was the fellow's, the father's name? David? I remember having a tour of Chapman's. This was after their fire. And he took us on a tour. And so we had a guided tour with David Chapman. He was quite an interesting guy. And so he took us in there and he said, he says, you know, you really want some ice cream. He said, who likes ice cream? Oh, of course. He says, well, here, take some. So he had these little spoons and a little bit of ice cream. So that's not the way you do ice cream. This is how you do ice cream. And he put his hand into the ice cream like this, and started eating it. And I thought, wow, that's probably not something you want the public to see. But anyway, he was an interesting guy. Okay, go ahead.
Not sure what.
Feedback, is that what it is?
World Farm Study is the 2023 recipient of the ACO Public Education and Engagement Award. Founded in 2019, the non-profit Ontario Barn Preservation OBP is the only provincial organisation committed solely to the leadership of saving old barns. Partnering with the University of Guelph's History Department, over 2 years, OBP directors and 6 experiential course students created the Your Old Barn Study software, designed to capture valuable data on the construction and significant features of old barns, as well as wonderful old barn stories. The project's innovative idea is to train a small army of owners to document their own barns, using simple educational tools, smartphones, and computers to collect and send searchable information to a central database. Ontario Barn Preservation believes Your Old Barn Study may result in one of its most significant methods of saving old barns. Although only dozens have thus far been studied, the ball is now rolling.
Just gotta restart the audio back here.
So we've had a half a dozen University of Guelph students help us on this. None of them had ever been in a barn before. He's formerly a retired veterinarian, so he's from a dairy farm, so he had some barn experience. We've actually got 2 more students starting in May, and they're going to be starting to analyze some of the information that we've got in the study. Okay, so let's open it up. Perfect. Okay. So you start the barn study now, and there it is. Oh, there's a checklist too. We also have a checklist. Let's just pop on the checklist. So these are all things that you need to kind of just be ready to look for and before you go into your barn. So we're going to be asking you things about your who owns it, where it is, when the barn was built, if you know it, the physical condition of the barn. You know, what kind of roof shape it has, what kind of construction method, and we've given lots of information here and drop-down menus for you to just check off the one it is. We talk to you about sketches, the current use of the barn, and we even ask you to include a little short story if you've got some memory in there, or you know something about the barn that you think others might be interested in, you know, 50 years from now. I don't think there's any more on this page, is there? I don't think so, no. Oh, yes, okay. So we're going to be asking you to take pictures of your barn. And you'll be able to upload these pictures right to the website. So we're going to be asking you to take pictures of you know, a perspective photo that shows the roof and the wall and the end. And you may say, well, that's kind of a strange picture to take, but it gives you perspective. It gives you a better idea. And there's a lot of information you can get out of a shot like this. So this is the end view and a side view. And so we'll talk to you about why you should do those and how to do them. We're going to be asking you to take some pictures of the vents, which are the framing members that hold up the barn. We're going to be asking you to take a picture of the threshing floor, which is the big floor area, usually at front of the big barn doors. And we're going to be asking you to take a picture of the roof. You may say, well, that's a strange thing to take. The roof, why would I do that? Well, it tells you an awful lot of information. To the trained eye, you can tell an awful lot. When I get people who call me about swing beam barns, they'll say, I have a beautiful swing beam barn. I say, well, you know, here's 3 pictures I'd like you to take of me. And I can tell them just about everything I need to know about their barn without even going out of my house to see whether it's something, and I can see things. I had a fellow last week who called me from Ohio to buy my book. And he says, I have a swing beam barn. I said, really? So I said, can you take a couple pictures? Anyway, he took a couple pictures, and there were some things in that barn that I see in barns here in Ontario he'd never seen before in his own barn. Never, including his father, who's older than me. And you know, you can tell things about it. I said, that ages the barn. That helps tell how old that barn is. So you can learn an awful lot from these. Might be the last one, no? We're going to ask you to take pictures of a mortise and tenon joint. You can also tell an awful lot about the age of a barn on the size of the pins and even the way these things are oriented. That's probably the last one, okay? And then if you're really not that comfortable with doing a digital version, you can also download a paper copy of this thing and go through the barn and check things off yourself and then put it into the software later. So just try hitting that download and you'll end up getting this little document. And it's everything that's on the website is exactly in here. It's just in condensed form. And that's a way that you can do it. It's 78 pages long if you print it out. And so that's why I did it. I actually put this together. I did it so that I could print 4 pages on a page, front and back. And so it's only 18 pages long. So it's a little less trees lost doing that. Okay, so we're going to go right into the beginning and we'll go back to the actual study itself. And so there's just question after question, and you just go through, you can start anywhere, you can end anywhere. You can come back to it anytime you want, and start again. The software is smart enough that it knows that it came from your laptop or your cell phone. You can do it on your cell phone too. It'll go back to the same place where you left off. The only thing that you have to be careful of is when you get to the end, there's a submit button. And as soon as you hit the submit button, it's gone. You can't do any more changes, and it's in the database. And so we end up getting lots of false sort of records because people hit the submit button and they didn't realize that they weren't done, sort of thing. So we're not going to do that today, though, Emily, are we? But we are going to hit the submit button.
Finish it.
We are going to finish one here today. Okay, so there's lots of stuff in here, just on the whole purpose of it. Who OBP is. I'll put a commercial in for OBP. We'd love to have you as a member, but that's not our big focus, is to get members. I think it's $30 a year to be a member, $300, and you can be a lifelong member. It's real good if you're a young person with, 80 years ahead of you. It's a bargain. For those of us who are much older and we don't have as many, the road isn't quite as long ahead of us, it's not quite as big a deal. Okay, so, so we talk about the checklist, and there's no mandatory fields. Like there's no question in there that you get to and you say, I don't want to answer that question. It'll still go into the overall, it'll still go in. But, I mean, if you don't tell us where the barn is, it's not as helpful. If you don't tell us who you are, it's not as helpful. This is all confidential information. I can't even get in and see this information. Right at the moment, there's only 2 people in Ontario who can get into this data, and that's Randy Bagg, who is our director that works with us on this, and Dr. Kim Martin at the history department in Guelph, at the University of Guelph. And so we're going to be very careful about who can access this information, because not everybody wants to have information about locations and things like that. But you can be assured this is going to have some pretty good protocols in place on who can use this. There's also a link to common terms and definitions in here that we talk about, and those are actually on our website. And so just some very simple stuff. Your barn may be just a simple barn box with a roof on it. We see lots of those. They're very simple, but it may also be a combination of several connected buildings over time. So if we just scroll down to this, Emily, this is the way barn complexes started. They started off with a simple little barn, and then they added an addition on it, and they added an L on it. And a lot of barns, believe it or not, tons of barns from the 1800s went from a gable roof to a gambrel roof. They were actually changed. It might not be the original roof at all. So it's hard to recognize old barns. There were no gambrel roof barns pretty much before Confederation, 1867. Most of them were later than that. They just weren't around. They didn't have them.
Why did they change them?
So a good question. Why did they change them? So a couple of reasons. First of all, to get more storage. These things didn't really start showing up until the livestock industry really took hold. There was no livestock industry really the way we know it today before 1867. People grew their own food. They had their own meat. They had their own milk. They had all the stuff. They didn't, nobody was, producing milk for the masses. But after around 1867, that changed. So this was to get more room for hay, straw, that kind of thing. It was also to help install some racks. What's the word I'm looking for? hay trolleys and things like that. Those really didn't start to appear until the late 1800s, early 1900s. So that was in there. And you'll find in these old barns, a lot of beams got cut in these barns to allow that to happen. To the detriment of the barn, actually. A lot of barns got weakened an awful lot. You can't just go in with a chainsaw and start chopping beams out of there and expect the barn to stand up. So you get into these really complex barn complexes, and sometimes you have to do a little hunting to find the old barn. That's the one we want you to concentrate is on the old barn. But you can do this study for one barn, you can start over, do a second barn, a third barn. You can do as many as you want, and maybe they're all connected, but they're all different. They all have different features.
Two of the farms that my family had, they had what they called driving sheds.
Yeah.
And they looked just like barns.
Yeah.
But they didn't call them a barn, they're driving sheds. So is that the sort of thing we would put on this as
You
well?
could still do it, yes.
Yeah. Down.
Yes, and that brings up a good point. You can actually do a barn after it's down. So
On photos that you have?
on old photos and stuff. So in my next book, I'm actually going to be recreating my old barn. And it's been down for 30 years. But I have 2 or 3 photos. I didn't know the size of it. I didn't know, really, I didn't know the dimensions. But I figured out all the dimensions based on aerial photos, other photos, on some ratios, and just my common knowledge of what's in a barn, stall sizes, all those things. So you can actually do a barn after it's gone. Now, there's a fellow I helped put his old barn into the study. He's 95 years old. His barn went down in the 50s. And it was because it was on a gravel pit, northeast of Toronto. Massive big gravel pit. Barn used to be in the middle of it. And he says, oh, I used to have this old barn. I said, do you have any old pictures? And he says, yeah. So anyway, we took the pictures and I helped him with we figured out the layout. Yeah, the horses were over here. We had 6 cows there and we laid it all out and now his barn is in the study. So it's kind of like a legacy thing, right? Great thing for your.
2 barns to tornadoes. So it'd be great to bring them back.
You could bring them back to life. If you have enough information, you can do it. It's not easy, but you can do it.
Can I
Okay,
just,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have the gambrel.
Yeah.
It's actually French. So the oldest gambrel, or thought to be the oldest gambrel route in North America is Harvard Hall, Harvard University.
okay, and when was that?
From 1677.
Yes, okay, so there were old ones, yes.
Yeah, so the influence of the gambrel route is even you see it in housing, it's the attic space too, to make
Yeah.
it livable, and typically it's more staff or servants that live up inside of an attic.
Okay.
So the influence of the gambrel when it came into Canada was the US. The agrarian culture was established on the world in Canada. It migrated from the northeastern part of the US up into Canada. So the reason it came late too was because just we didn't have, I would say, when you think that, our house, 1851, Canada didn't exist. So it's interesting to see where then the settlers were coming up from the north of the US into Canada or settling into Canada. They're taking architectural styles, building technology up here. So a lot of it came from that part of the United States. So even though it might be a newer roof type of
Yes.
barn style up here in Canada, it's been around for 350, 400 years.
Yeah, in barns too, or?
In barns.
In barns as well, okay, so I wasn't aware of that, that's good.
I put on my professor hat sometime.
That's good. There you go. Well, the swing beam barn actually comes from the States. That actually comes from the States, northeastern United States, New York, Pennsylvania. That whole area, New Jersey. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so there's a little arrow here. You hit the little arrow and it takes you to the next question. And then there's an informed consent. So basically this says, we need your permission to do this. And so your completion and submission of this study as your consent to participate. So that's really how this all happens, and that's all the legal stuff and everything else, so. Yeah, and then we have a little button, you gotta show that you're not a robot. You've probably, some of you have seen that on things. There's always, there's some kid over in who knows where that's going on here and trying to, scam things. I'm always amazed how many people find time to scam stuff. Just drives me crazy. I think that's the scum of the earth. But anyway, so you put in your names, and this is going to end up in a great, big, humongous spreadsheet at some point. And you can't even imagine, it's hard to actually massage it all. So you put in your phone number, and you got to put in the dashes here. Again, these are all optional. If you don't want to put your email in, that's fine. But the email is there in case at some point a student or somebody connected to this may have to go in and clarify some things. You did this, we don't understand. And so that's how they can contact you. The street name and number, again, is just so we can geolocate you. And the town and the city or the township, this is all to just find you. And so, yes, this is all for Ontario, but remember, I'm from Quebec, so my barn, I actually put our barn into the database here, and it is actually a Quebec barn. We don't care. If you want to put in a barn you have from Timbuktu, we don't care. Please tell us what it is. Now, my ancestors settled in Eastern Ontario, and then they went across the St. Lawrence River into Quebec. So they started off in Ontario, but they ended up, our farm was actually on the St. Lawrence River, except on the south side of the St. And so if you know the historic township name, it was Collingwood. So that is Collingwood Township, but now I think it's got some other name, but we'll figure it out. It'll all be something we can figure out. If you know the lot and concession, today, a lot of people don't know their lot and concession. But Emily does know it. And she's gonna put it in. Yes, so you figured it out, yeah. And then this is the best way of all to locate your barn, and that's to actually have the longitude and latitude of that barn. And if you go to Google Maps, and you left click, or no, just go on to Google Maps. Yes, go on to Google Maps. We can actually find it. So the barn is down here. So Emily's going to show you an aerial photo of barn, and that's it right there. And that's the barn right there. And if she puts her cursor right on that, it gives you the longitude and latitude. And so you just put those numbers right into the thing, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. Pretty good.
You said this has to be negative, right?
It should be negative, but at the end of the day, even if it's all put into an Excel spreadsheet, we will turn positive numbers into negative numbers, because that, if it was positive, it would probably take it to March or something. And sorry. So then you move on. I will say right at this point, the software, we looked at different ways that this was done in other jurisdictions. Most jurisdictions have paper versions of this. And they'll say, how big is your barn? And some people will put down 40 feet. Some people will put down, 480 inches, okay? So we're trying to be very consistent here on the approach about how you put information in here. so that it's searchable at some point. Some other people will write the word 40, Forty. And so all those are the same thing, but they're not the same. And they're hard to actually search and actually do something with. The software is also only going to probably connect with about 90% of the barns. If you've got some triangular shaped barn or a round barn or something with a goofy roof that's completely outside of the norm, it's going to be hard to make this software work for you, but it'll still work. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. If you give us information, even on a bizarro barn, we will be able to do something with that information. So we ask you in the first section about the physical and structural composition of your barn. You're going to need a measuring tape or a laser measuring tool or something. I brought a little laser measuring tool that I have that I would use in some barns. And so, you know, over to that door over there is 14 feet 1 inch. Okay, so you know you can do that. So I use this mostly for height of barns. You can't actually get to. So you know that's 3'6". So
Buy that on Amazon?
actually,
Buy it anywhere.
I bought this at Home
Home
Depot.
hardware.
Yeah, I was like it might have been $75 or something like that. I mean, if you can't reach something, it's worth a lot of money. And with new knees, I don't need to fall off a 40-foot ladder.
Actually, has anybody gone out and done 3D scan of barns? Have you started doing that?
So I did not, you weren't here when I mentioned something about that, but you can. That stuff is out there now. You can actually take pictures and actually recreate the whole thing.
Actually, you just go in basically with a pedestal, there's a scanner that sits on top, and goes around, it creates an entire 3-dimensional model of the barn.
We want one, Steve.
That's on our wish
It's on our list. Yeah, they're probably more than $75.
Slightly.
But there's smart software in the future that will be able to take this information and do exactly what you're talking about. We want to buy just a 3D camera. A 3D camera that actually you can put in and do a barn tour with a camera live, you know, and show people. And yeah, there's a barn that we actually tested it out on, and it's amazing the detail you can see. Yeah, but you know, when if you're going to use a tape measure, they're great, but you need a tape measure that has a really good extension, right? That can come out long ways before it's snapped on in. They're a little more expensive, but you know, they're $30. Good, make a good Christmas gift. Okay, so the first thing you're doing is you're documenting the barn as it stands now, or the way it used to stand. So we know that it's no longer there. And then what kind of farm is your barn located? What kind of land use is it? And Emily's is a working farm that's greater than 5 acres. So it's a real farm. It's not a 1 acre parcel with a house and a barn on it. It's a real farm. But you can see all the different places, and there's probably more than that are out there. We just want to know what the use is for it. And we give you the option, you can always write something else in at the bottom if there's another use. We always give people a last option. What year was the barn built? Some people know exactly the year that their barns were built, but most do not. And if you don't know, you just skip to the next question. And then, you know, we ask you to just give us a range. You know, most people can give you a range of when their barn was built. There is a blog on our website that helps you try to figure out some of those things, you know, based on the wood, the construction method, the hardware, the orientation, the size of things, different things. And what did we agree that your barn was probably built?
1850 to 1899.
Yeah. I think that barn was probably built in that, I mean, we may be off a little bit, maybe it was 1849, I doubt it. But we looked at the registry record. Did you,
Yeah,
so, when I'm researching a barn, I always look at the registry records, and you can actually go online and find out who used to own your property. Way back. Some of them are a little harder to interpret than others, but,
Hugh, can I just get a comment? When we bought our farm, we're in Priceville, so or Glenelg, it's on the technical West Craig. I just went to the archive in Mount Sound.
Yeah.
And the librarian pulled out all the original patent books. We just opened up, we photocopied everything from 1848.
perfect.
So they actually have everything documented.
So you're in.
Sometimes the faster route is to go to the historic website. The history of Glenelg starts with the original owner of the, and then it goes right to 1984, whenever that book was done.
Yeah, what I found interesting with the patents is it actually shows the exchange, how much money
Oh.
was paid.
And the mortgages.
And I know, you see going back and forth between the same people.
Yeah.
I know.
I think this is a gambling match.
I think, as a show, gambling, I think that's. The Priceville, so you're from Priceville and you know Priceville.
Yeah, I'm from Glenelg.
Perfect. I want to talk to one of you about, because I want to put a story in the next book. About Priceville. Okay, good. I gotta get your details before I leave. Okay, so this is when we think. So did you go on and did you find that?
so oops. Yes.
So I looked it up and I sent the link to Emily. And maybe. So this is
This
the
one
one
here?
right here. So that's the link to the registry site. I don't know if it's gonna take you straight to the page or not. No, okay, so you type in Ray. And then you go to properties, historical books. Browse books. Yes, go to this. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get to it. Okay, and then you go to township and municipality, and that should be Collingwood. And then you go to concession 9, which I think it was.
Yeah.
And you open up the book. And I forget what page it was. Oh, just go into page 100. What lot was it?
27.
You see, I can't even see which. You can zoom. You can make it bigger. That's lot 19. Okay, so yeah. So just go to the next until you get to 20. Oh, you're already there.
Are all of the books digitized now?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. So go to previous. Okay, I think. No previous again. We're still in the 1900s. And go to previous again. This will be it right here. So I had a heck of a time reading this. But I think, and this is the thing you get, because it's all written. And you can probably make that bigger, but I think it was around 18. But it was good. It looks like 1860 something, 68. It does look like 1868, which surprised me. I thought it would actually have been earlier than that, but 1868. And the grantor was a fellow by the name of Samuel.
George, someone.
But that's who got it. That's who got it. This is the guy who owned it. Lane, Daniel Lane, maybe, or Russell Lane, I don't know. Samuel. And, yeah, so that's, and they don't have the price here, but often they have the price. Maybe that's,
300.
How
yeah,
many acres?
yeah. So anyway, that gives you a sense. There's no way that they built that barn right away. Probably didn't build it right away.
And how can you tell on those when a barn was put on?
Oh, you can't. You can't. All you know is that it likely wasn't built the day after they bought it.
Yeah.
They had to clear land, but I'm convinced there's some people who built barns before they actually owned stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have no proof for that, but I see barns that are clearly built that are just way older than the property registry records tell me. So I'm convinced that happened out there, but I can't find somebody that can verify that.
My old barn, they up in the table in, they, put the date in it, they put holes through.
Yeah.
And read the 1911 in the end, so.
Yeah, good.
Have an idea.
There you go. Yeah, those are golden to find something.
But some of the lands were actually settled, or they were
Yes,
squatting before they got
That's
the
what I-
grant, because the grants were up on those lands.
that's exactly what I think is happening.
Some of that's in that.
Right.
They talk about
Okay.
as some people who have actually bought the lands before they got.
That's good to hear, because I'm sure that's exactly what's happening in a lot of cases. Okay, so this gives you a sense. I also use ancestry records to find out. I might look up this person right here or this person, try to find some family information on that person. You know, if somebody had no kids at all, and maybe they didn't build a barn, or maybe they, you know, they had 15 kids. You know, they're going to build something for the next 100 years. So you can kind of tell in the family sometimes when the barn might have been built.
The early ag census also tell you what type of crops they've got, and whether or not.
Yes.
They were storing something or just
Yes.
sending it to the market.
Yes, so the 1851 census is very, very helpful for finding out information about stuff they grew, how many horses they had, how many milch cows they had. It wasn't milk cows, it was.
How many acres?
How many
How
acres?
many were production, what crops they produced.
What crops they grew.
How much the value of those annual crops.
Yep, yep. They even would tell you how many, one piece of information on type of horse, work horses, but it was also, well, a different word for it. No, it wasn't, it was the one you went to church, you went to church. Carriage
Buggy
horse,
horse.
maybe buggy horse or something. And if you had a lot of buggy horses, you probably had lots of money.
Or you were livery state.
Or you were livery stable. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the study here. Okay.
They were probably called light horse. No, they were actually, you either had your workhorses or your saddle / driving horses. Because if you look at the.
Yeah. But I still believe this is the range. Still believe this is the right range. Okay, was this barn moved from a previous location? Now, a lot of barns got moved around. Pioneers were not afraid to move barns. They would move them a mile if they had to. Put them on rollers and drag them across with horses. Took them, you know, might have taken them all day, but they had all day. Maybe took them a few days to get. But a lot of barns have been moved, lots. Especially ones that were built as ground barns, ones that were actually built on the ground, on stone, field stone foundation.
Is there a way to know whether it's been?
Well, yeah, so sometimes. You can tell by the structure underneath the barn. They would not have a typically would not have a summer beam, which would be a beam that would run the length of the barn, be into the stone foundation down below, with joists on top of it. Everything would be kind of flat underneath, if you know what I mean, because that's the way the barn originally was. I've got a picture in here of a barn that near Markham, that's on a stone foundation now, but it was clearly moved because you can see some of the foundation is missing, and you can see on the beams that there was some water damage on it that happened from the stone that used to be underneath it. It didn't happen when it was up here. It happened when it was down there. So you can, if you train your eyes, you can see that kind of stuff. So if you know where the previous location is, we just ask you where it was.
You didn't think ours was.
No, I don't think yours was moved, but there's lots of barns that have been moved to become people's homes, businesses. There's a whole industry out there of people who take down barns and move them somewhere else, become a winery or whatever. Lots of them. Then we ask you about the physical condition of the barn, and this is a qualitative analysis. We're not asking you to do a big detailed structural analysis of it, but you know, in your opinion, is the barn roof in excellent condition? Is it leak proof? Is the roof line straight? Are the rafters looking pretty good? Are they all broken up or whatever? So down below, we do the same thing with each of the main components: roof, the walls, the floor, foundation, and the structural members. And we just ask you your opinion. If they look like they're new, they're excellent. If they look like they're in very good shape, they're probably excellent. But maybe they're good. Just gives us a sense of what shape is that barn in. And there's the last category is actually it's gone or it's fallen in or whatever. It's unlikely that you're going to have an excellent roof and walls that are down, right? I mean, those won't go together probably. But so that's kind of the way Emily and her brother and I assessed her barn. So I would say it's in pretty good shape. The walls had a little bit of a teeter to it, but they put some buttresses in there, and it's not going anywhere. And then we ask you which roof shape best describes your barn. And so we've got several different roof shapes. There's more out there than this, but the common ones are a gable shape or a gambrel shape. Those are the two main ones. I've seen some of these monitor types. I've seen some of those in Grey County. Some of these other ones, these Gothic and round or multi-sided, cove, mansard. We actually have a mansard barn down in Niagara. And people are always asking, what the heck is going on in that barn? It's just the strangest looking thing. And it is a strange looking barn. But built in 1885. There's lots of half gables out there. The Dutch barns are very, very old. There's only a couple of examples that I'm aware of in Ontario. There's a bunch of these in New York State. This is actually an actual hip barn, which we quite often call, a lot of people call this a hip barn. And I did when I was a kid, but truly it is a gambrel shape. Okay, and so which one was yours? Gable, yeah, Gable. And so depending on how you answer that question, it'll eliminate some questions to follow, or it'll leave those questions in there. And so then it's going to ask you, what shape is that roof? Is it a pretty flat roof, 312 to 512? Is it getting a little steeper, 6 to 8? Is it 9 to 11? Or is it really steep, like a Dutch roof that's 12 to 14 to 12? I don't think I've only ever seen one roof like that. Most of the barns fit in these these two categories here. The flatter the slope, kind of the younger the barn will be. So this, I mean, this is more typical today. In fact, we actually see 212 barns and 112 barns, and we see flat roof barns out there now in the livestock industry, just because they're steel frame or whatever.
How do you figure that out?
So that's a good question. I'll ask Steve or even our friend back here. I don't have a little device that measures that. But one of the things that I will use is the end view of the barn. And I just take the end view of the barn, I look at the both. In fact, I'll overlay photo over top of this and just say, yeah, it's 612, close enough. So,
I'm the measure the wall.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, you can figure it out that way.
I do it on site myself, it's totally negative, that's the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the ratio on it.
Yeah.
All you need to, if you take an end view of the barn,
Yeah,
just print out a piece of paper, and then you just draw a line, you know what the width of your barn is.
yeah.
Say half the dimension, you take that out, just.
Yep.
Simple math, right, just to figure it out. So,
Yeah, so it helps to age the barn. So, so what did we decide that yours was? It's kind of in between this one and the next one. I think we said it was 812 or thereabouts. Okay, so then the barn structure and construction method. A heavy timber frame with or without a lower level basement or stable. Very typical old barns. These are, very typical old barns. Stone barn. I don't know if any of you ever heard about the stone barn down in Guelph. That's actually it's in the news quite a bit. We got involved a little bit on that. There's controversy about it's owned by a developer. It's fallen in and they don't want to fix it and so on and so forth. That's the barn right there. That actually is the barn. I was in it a few years ago, I took that photo. This photo, John Radikovich took that photo. That's actually in Grey County. That's in just north of Durham, west side. And it's a swing beam barn, actually. You know that one? That would be a good one to get in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that off Highway 6?
Yeah, so it's maybe a half a kilometer, well, maybe 300 meters west of Highway 6. There's big fish ponds in around it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's used for anything right now. It's a big soil up back. I don't even know if that's still there or not. Anyway, it's a swing beam barn. And, there's not many of these stone barns left.
2 in one, and I don't.
Yeah, so there's not many. And this is the oldest barn in Ontario. This is at Black Creek Pioneer Village. So that's the Schmidt DL barn, built in 1808.
Is it moved to the Pioneer Village then?
No, that's where it was built. Yeah. And for some unknown reason, when I was 15, I took the bus down to Toronto to see my sister, who lived in the York Finch area, or Jane and Finch area, where this is, Jane and Finch. And I took a tour of the Black Creek Pioneer Village. I took one photo when I was there. That's what I took it of, which is kind of interesting. And then, 40 years later, 50 years later, I took the same photo, beautiful barn, just a beautiful barn. Unbelievable, really, how they built that back when there was nobody here to help build it. And then these stick frame barns, built in maybe the 18 or 1940s. So there's lots of different choices there. What did we decide your barn is? Oh, there's even a brick barn. I've never been in a brick barn. This is a picture that I got from, was from Will Samus, took that picture, or it's up near Belleville. So what did we decide yours was, Emily?
Heavy timber frame.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, compass orientation. So is it east, west, north, south, northeast, southwest, whatever, what's the best guess on it? You know, quite often they would have cattle areas on the south side that were out of the wind and, you know, a little bit warmer in the wintertime. But maybe that changed regionally. And so this is something that we will analyze in the future. Say, okay, you know, in this area, people built barns this orientation or this orientation, or maybe it was just simply because it lined up with the road. Well, we don't know. So what did we say yours was? East, west. So barn measurements. So this kind of sometimes stumps people on how to do this, but we're not trying to get perfection here, but we want to get the width of the barn, outside width, outside length, and the height of the wall up to the roof plate. And so these are the kind of the dimensions we're looking for. And this is the barn that the schematic that my friend drew on SketchUp. It's a very simple sketching program. This is the one that he put the picture of me inside the basement. My son-in-law took that SketchUp file and he went to the Owen Sound Library. They have a 3D printer there. Still there or not. But he actually built me a 3D version of that barn with a 3D printer. And I've got it at home. I should have brought it. It's absolutely identical to that. Identical. It's unbelievable. I said, how long did that take? He said, 4 hours. Just go back and forth. 4 hours later, you come out with this plastic barn. So we're looking for the length outside and the width outside and the height from the floor up to the top of the plate and from the floor down to the ground as best you can. Now, it's not always easy to get some of these dimensions, but what did we come up with? So there's a couple of barns at Emily's place. We only chose one barn and it was 46. So you don't have to put the foot thing on it. But I actually don't know what happens if you do that. I don't actually know what happens. I'm gonna find out because somebody has definitely done it. We have about 100 barns in this now. It's taking a while to get people onto it. Steve's done a number of barns. He's just gone out to a few of people he knows, got their permission to do it. He's getting really good at it now.
Stephen was taking you to.
Oh, I'm on site, a couple of hours, then, before I put this in, I know what to expect on the program, so I do a lot of prep work. And then I'm actually on doing this. And I've stuck with my protocol and use and stuff.
It's like everything else. The first one takes 10 hours, the next one takes 8, and then he'll be doing them in a half an hour. You know, that's just the way it is. And
So we had 17 and a half for the wall height, but it will only let me won't let me put in the decimal.
yes, it won't
So-
let you put a decimal.
Do you
So
want 17 or 18 in
what's the feeling of the crowd? 17 or 18? 18. Let's go to 18. And that is actually significant to put the height of the wall in because
That's beams.
that's to the top of that beam that's sitting where the rafters sit on top. Okay, the top of that, let's say this is the beam, the top of that. So when the fellow from Ohio sent me pictures of his swing beam barn, the first thing I noticed is how short the walls were. I said, those look like they're 12-foot walls. He says, yeah, they're exactly 12 feet. How did you know that? I said, well, just the way everything looked. We don't see 12-foot walls in swing beam barns here, at least I haven't seen. So that's a unique sort of regional sort of thing that they would have there. We don't have here. Ours,
Tree supply at that time because they would have been harvesting early.
Yeah.
I mean, but
possibly it might have had something to do with available labor, who knows what that. But, you know, our barn, so the highest one I've seen here is over 20 feet. That's pretty high.
the other thing is their winter storage requirements wouldn't be as much.
And that could be too. That's another, that's a good response. Quite possible. Because, yeah, that could well be one of the reasons. There may be other reasons. So that's good. And then we said 8 feet for the lower floor. There's a lot of them that are even lower than that. And, you know, when you start hitting your head on beams and stuff, that's when you wish you were a little shorter. Okay, and then we ask you if there was, you know, if you think the barn had been extended, and you quite often look at that beam up there and see, you know what, they actually put an extension on, and the rafters are different at that end, and it was a whole new addition. So we asked you, what was the original width? They widened the barn, they lengthened the barn. So we just asked you a very simple question about it.
But it doesn't cover, our barn was lifted up and the basement was put underneath about 30 years after the barn was built.
Yes, yes. So that's, you're right. And that's something that we don't actually have a question on that. I don't believe we do. But you could add that in the comments at the end of the end. Because that actually happened a lot. They jacked a lot of barns up. I would say 50% of the swing beam barns I've been in jacked up later. They were just jacked up and they put a stone foundation in. Because, yeah,
We jacked ours up so we could get in with the tractor and load it, so we didn't clean it by hand.
yeah, that's a good reason too. And you could say that at the end, you know what, in 1969, we raised the barn 1 foot so we could get in. That's a good story right there. That, you don't think that's a fun story, but that actually is a fun story.
Well, working with my husband wasn't all that fun, but.
But the work wasn't fun or your husband wasn't fun. Okay,
But it got done.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so then we ask you about giving us some photos. And so this is actually a barn down in Niagara that I actually, a little bit of a story on this. This is actually owned by the fellow that was the best man at my wedding. And I'd known him for 40 years before I realized he owned a swing beam barn. I'd never been in the barn. Well, I'd been in it, but I'd never looked at it closely. And he calls me up one day, he says, you know that, I think I have one of those things. Can you come over and take anyway? He has it. So, and in behind, can't even quite see, but there's a 5-story hospital right behind his barn. Right behind his barn, literally helicopters landing, and it's just crazy at this place. But here's this barn built probably about 1839, so sitting there. At one time, it would have been the biggest barn, biggest building anywhere in sight, and now it's just a little teeny tiny barn. It just seems insignificant. But anyway, we're looking for a picture that shows the wall, side wall, the end wall, and the roof all in one photo. And I should have stood further back when I took this photo, but I was already standing on a very busy shoulder of the road, and I wasn't going to back up anymore because I would never have gotten the photo. So we're looking for that. And so Emily's got one of her place that she took. So she just puts it in there and boom, there it is. There's her photo. Forever. She's going to be older than me, and that's still going to be in there at some time. And, okay, and then the end photo. So again, I wasn't standing far enough back for this photo. I should have been standing back farther from this photo, because what happens is you get the photo actually skews. See how it looks wider? Looks like the wall is on an angle, the perspective's off. It's because I wasn't far enough back from that photo. So when you're taking this photo, best thing to do, instead of being right here, taking it, you know, and the whole thing's right here in front of you, you're better off to go back, you know, 100 feet or more and zoom in, or just take it the way it is. We can zoom in later, but you're better to zoom in. You won't get that same skewing of the photo.
I think you had an example of that.
Yes, I actually did for the front view. Yes, see, here's, maybe you don't even need to, yeah, okay. Bigger. So that's too close. See how it looks like it's on an angle here? Because I'm too close. I'm actually closer to the base than I am to the top. So it skews everything. It makes it look like the barn is that shape. If you want to get it like this, you get a true look at it, you need to stand back farther. And you can't stand too far back. That looks much better, in my opinion. You could even be further, but I don't think I could even stand any further back. Yeah. This one, an interesting story about, this is the one that actually has that metal stuff. This barn is a swing beam barn. It's one of the biggest barns I've ever been in. It's 46 feet wide with a clear span swing beam that goes all the way across the entire way. That is a massive barn, massive barn. It's down near Selkirk in Halden County. Notice that's my camera shot. So it's a lot bigger file
Oh,
than your probably your. So we also take the best quality photo you can. If you can, take the best quality you can. There's the side view. Again, I should have been further away on that one as well. But there were ticks in the field and I wasn't going back any farther either. Good, and then a bent photo, and so the bent is the framing, one of the framing members or framing frames for holding up the barn. This is quite clear, it's an old barn, you can see, it's right on Highway 3 near Dunville. So you get lots of light in there, that's the framing one. Here's another one. This barn actually is Grey County too. This is actually in Grey County. Oh, it's near that, say the ski area. Region Road 7 runs north-south. There's a
Valley? Beaver Valley?
It's in the Beaver Valley. Yes, it's in the Beaver Valley. Double swing beam barn, beautiful. One of the most beautiful barns I've ever been in. It's got the end posts are actually flared. They're narrower at the bottom and then they go up wider and then they go narrower again. Just, it was done by an artist. Beautiful barn. So we took a picture of a bent. Sometimes it's hard to take these pictures. You can't stand back far enough. But really what we're looking for, can you just open that picture up? We're just looking to see how the barn is put together. So some of the key things, want to see some of the posts, we want to see the angle braces, tie beams, maybe how it's connected to another section out to the side. But you can't hardly stand back far enough to do that, but that's a pretty good photo to give a sense of what's going on in the barn. The greenery in the back.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Then the threshing floor. So in the big doors, you want to have a photo of the, just what do things look like on that threshing.
When I do photographs, I usually do a series with flash, without flash. And then just put the best.
Yes, good, yeah. This would have been with a flash. And maybe in hindsight, I should have taken, well, I didn't actually do the photo for the barn study. But, so there's the threshing floor. Yep. Maybe not the best photo either. It was getting kind of dark when I got there. And then a good picture of the roof, underside of the roof, shows a lot of things. Shows rafter spacing, and it will help you understand if things are missing. It shows the full length of the barn. Yeah, lots of different things. So that's a good photo. And that's the one we took in that barn. So this thing shows a bunch of things. It shows the track up here. So here's the track that they would have had, loose hay, you know, on a hay fork running along there. It shows that there's round rafters here. You can see some of them are got little wows in them and stuff, but that's okay. I think these all round or not, remember? Can't recall. They look like they're square timbers. Can't remember.
It looks square.
Yeah, and there may have been some that replaced, yeah. You can see the width of the cladding up here, and you can see how they, you know, they all line up with this, then they all of a sudden start again instead of staggering them. It just tells you a number of different things. It'll probably show you some members that are missing. We don't see anything missing here. Yeah, it's a good photo. And then we ask you to take a photo of the mortise and just a mortise and tenon joint. Generally speaking, the biggest pins will be on either side of the threshing floor, although not necessarily, but that's often the easiest place you can take a photo. This particular mortise and tenon is not square, it's actually angled. You can see that it's got an angle to it, shoulder here. These pins in here, I think, are 1.25" diameter. Bigger the diameter, probably the older the barn. Biggest ones I ever see are 2 inches, which is a big pin. You'll see those in barns way back into the 1820s. Yeah, so that's a good photo.
In this survey, do you ask for that kind of information too? Or is it-
So there is a spot later on for pins, but you can there's spots for comments all over the place. So you can always, if you think there's something that's unique to your barn, just tell us. It'll end up in the database and worry about it later where it actually goes. That particular question, how big are the pins, I don't think is in there.
I do, I think it is.
Is it? Okay, maybe it is. Maybe it
We
is.
measured them anyways.
Yes, yes. Okay, so then there's on special features. So we first part starts on the roof. So what do you see up on your roof? There's a whole bunch of examples. Has it got a cupola? So that's what a cupola is. This cupola was actually on a barn that burned down about 3 years ago. It's a big winery down in Kernder Estate Winery. So Herndon Estate Winery burned to the ground, every building about 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years. Ago. And that's the barn. And so, funny story, I got a call from the insurance company. I got a call from the insurance company because it's actually in my book. And I'm the only one who actually knew what the barn looked like inside. So they're trying to recreate the barn to tell them what kind of insurance claim. That puts a lot of pressure on me. I didn't really expect that to happen, but it's in there and there's a lot of photos. And so again, this is almost like a little insurance thing for you. You record a lot of stuff in here. It might come in handy someday. Just saying, it might come in handy. So that's. Do you have a dormer that's sticking out the side? That's actually what this thing is right here. So that's a dormer. That was probably added later. This roof was actually added. It used to be a gable roof and it got changed to a gambrel roof, probably 100 years ago. That barn was built in the 1840s.
Are they very common? Those
no.
kind of features?
No, well, they're not uncommon, but you don't see a lot of them. You don't see it. A hay hood or a turkey tail or a hay bonnet. I guess they got all kinds of names. Where I'm from, we don't see a lot of these, but some areas you do see. For rain, they'd be picking hay up from outside and taking it down. So, there's different sizes of these things. This is a real extreme one, but you have it. And you can check as many of these as you want. Lightning rods. Lots of lightning rods on old barns. They only started going in around 1880, something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean the barn is built in 1880. This one was built in 1830s. And they added it later. So, ventilators out through the roof. Lots of barns have those. Weather vanes. This one says 1881. But that barn was built in about 1850. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's how old the barn is. I had a fellow one time tell me, I said, I think your barn was built about 1850. He says, oh no, he says, not a chance. He says, it says on the wall, 1910. I can show it to you, 1910 on the concrete. I said, yeah, the concrete thing was put in later. No, there's no way it was in 1910. But anyway, can't always convince people. Windmills. So that could be there for pumping water, or it could be there for grinding grains. There's another dormer right there. That barn is still there as well. It's a picture. And then the wooden shakes or shingles. All these barns built in the early 1800s definitely would have had wood shingles, and quite often, even after barns have been added later on, you can still find the old shingles up there. And there's some really good examples of they've been preserved and covered from the elements for 100 years. So they're still in pretty good shape. They're dirty and they're covered with pigeon shit and everything else, but they're still in pretty good shape. And then you can add other. So why don't we just add something in here?
Steel tables.
I think there was a question on that. Let's just put something in. Just put something. Hi, I'm Emily. We're doing this today.
Or where did we put in the little half doors? The little.
You know what? We'll do it on the walls. We'll do it on the walls.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the outside of the barn walls. So if you've got an earthen ramp to the mount, so is there some kind of a built up or even into the side of a hill, goes up? Does it have board and batten siding on it? Does it have a brick foundation? Pretty uncommon, but they could be. Are there any carved dates on it? So. It's 1866. Who was here from Nassau-Gaya?
That's when
Nassau-Gaya? Was it you? You were Nassau-Gaya, weren't you? No.
Rattlesnake Point.
This picture is taken right at Rockwood. There's a barn right on, does anybody know who Farmer Tim is? Okay, so Farmer Tim May is an over-the-top, excited about old barns kind of guy, right? We want to actually advertise this software through Farmer Tim on his Facebook page, which he has like 1 million views a month. Well, he's very popular. He says, just tell me when you want me to advertise it. I'll do it. But I'm almost afraid to do it because I think we might just get crashed. I don't know if I'm ready for it or not. But anyway, this is next door to him. It says 1866 right on. So it's kind of neat. And that, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good date. Does it have decorative windows? This is where we thought, so you have hay doors that look a lot like this. I think we'll write that in somewhere here. And we'll put a picture of it too. Does it have diamond crosses on the gable end of the barn? So I saw some examples of this in your book. We see these
in our area.
We see these all the way back, early 1800s, right into the 1900s. I believe they are part religious and part good luck charms. I think these were.
They seem to correspond in our area with the influx of the Pennsylvania Germans.
Yes, and that's where you do see it. I believe they were an early form of insurance. So basically you said to God, please don't burn my barn down. Please don't do that. But it was also, if you didn't put them on, and it was also to stop fire. So this is the same cross that you see on firemen's fire people. I don't even know what's called anyway. But anyway, it's that's their logo. And so I believe that these things were there to say, please, God, don't burn my barn down. And it was a good luck charm. And also, if you didn't put it in and your barn burned down, well, you were a damn fool if you didn't put it on there because your barn burned down. But if you do put it on and it keeps staying there, well, that was a good idea because I put it on there and the darn thing didn't burn down. So I think there was a lot of peer pressure to put those things in. And you'll see those, I've seen tons of those, and there's some of them are in excellent shape. They're not for ventilation. They are not for ventilation. A lot of people think they're for ventilation. They're not big enough, more decorative and religious in nature. But I was going to say, in one of the barns that I'm going to include in my next book, it's in Wellington County, in Erin Township, there is 2 indigenous arrowhead symbols pointing down. And when you have, I'm told that when you have 2 arrows pointing down, it's a symbol of peace with your neighbors or whatever. And so I'm researching that. I'm told there's a bunch of barns in Erin Township. So I haven't been able to find
There's
some.
a different symbol in Hamilton Township. Swans, I think, swans or swallows.
Okay.
I'll send you pictures of that, Mark.
Okay. Yeah. But this one, to find that is just magical to find it. Like I wouldn't, you almost can barely see them now, but they are definitely there. Dutch doors, so a door that opens both on the top and the bottom, hinged in different. You'll see those in a lot of barns. Embrasures, this is actually, the barn here in Durham. You see these little holes? People think they're for sticking your gun out there to shoot at people, but more for ventilation, anything else. Pretty rare to find those. They're rare to find those. Although they are in one of Farmer Tim's barns, he has those.
So just for the rock. So,
Yes, and there's also one on Campbellville Road.
yes,
That one, that's a beautiful, I want to get in there.
actually, I know.
I'd love to get in there. I really would love to write a book about stone barns. I don't know, never been. A 4-bay or overshoot where it overhangs. That was kind of a Pennsylvania German sort of a design. See a lot of those. A bridge ramp to the mouth, so where it's open underneath, but there's some kind of a wood or steel ramp that goes up into the mouth. Horizontal wood cladding, that's a real sign of old age. When you find that overlapping 6-inch 1x6s overlapping. These owl holes, maybe that's what you're talking about. I've never seen these.
Yeah, there's owl holes, but there's also swallows or swans.
Okay.
On this one barn in Mapleton, they're not big enough to let a barn owl through.
Now, this is the peddler siding or roof material, so a lot of old barns had these interlocking, and I don't know if this is peddler stuff or not. Peddler was a Canadian company. Those are maple leaves, so maybe that's what it was, but they were back, I don't even know exactly when, but I'm gonna say that 1920s and 30s. That's when you see, this came out of this barn, right? It was the roof or wall, roof.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then a pentus, something that looks like a little roof that's over top of the big door. And there's one at Emily's farm, and the vertical wood cladding. So you'll see that on a lot of barns. So she's checking that.
So what was the difference in horizontal and the vertical cladding?
Well, the horizontal is a lot older, would have been a lot older than this. But I think this probably was a lot easier to do at some point. I don't know if anybody's got some thoughts on that, Steve, but this, see how they're overlapped here to shed the rain? Same with the horizontal ones, they shed the rain.
You got frame inside.
And they're framing different inside, you're right. Yep. Yep. So you need horizontal beams here to attach these things to. Whereas on the other ones, you could have some different features inside to attach to. This is actually in Markham. Right in Markham. So why don't we put something in under other? So why don't you, oh, did you check off the, this? Yeah,
No.
check that one off. Call it that, yeah. And what do we want to put here? This is where your A doors are. Why don't you put down small decorative A doors? We'll put a picture of them on gable end. They both
Yeah,
ends?
I think it's on all of the sides.
All sides, okay. Well, not that you do anymore? Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay. So this is anchor beams. You would see these in Dutch barns where the beam actually protrudes right out the other side. Again, you don't see this very often. There's a barn like this at Upper Canada Village. If you have a chance to get up there, it's a beautiful barn. Beams with one or more dimensions of 12 inches or greater. This is a beam that's 16 inches wide floor in a barn in Dunville. It runs the entire length of the barn. And that takes a big tree to do that. So, canted queen posts. So posts that are on usually a 60-degree angle up to the roof with a brace. Doesn't have any of those. They came in mostly around 1840 or so in Ontario. If you've got some dates that are on there, this one is one of the best examples I've ever seen of a carved date. It's just beautiful workmanship. Somebody really knew what they were doing. That was not easy to do. It's just beautiful. And the farmer who owned this thing just happened to find it on a board in his granary. It was just an accident. Found it. Double threshing floor instead of just one. See those in Wellington County and places up here. We don't see them down in Niagara at all.
Why would they have been up here and not down there?
Probably because they were built later up here. And by the time these were being built down in Niagara anyway, it was starting to get into fruit stuff instead of wheat. And the farms were a lot smaller down in Niagara than they are up here. We have the smallest farms in Ontario, lot wise. We have the oldest network of roads in Niagara. So you can't go, like they're so close together. Up here, the roads are a long ways apart. Down there, they're very, very close together. Farms are on the average. To find a 100-acre farm in one parcel, there might be 5 in all of Niagara. Like north of the Scarlet. They just don't exist. This was an interesting one called a fire letter. I'm told that this letter is actually sitting in the Markham Museum. It's all in Old German, written in Old German, but basically it says, "God, don't burn my barn down." And so a fellow that I interviewed said he found one of these things in a neighbor's barn when he was a kid. And I think that might be it because he donated it to the museum. And it was tucked away up on the roof plate beam under a rock, just hidden. Probably the owner who built this barn was the only one who ever saw it. Who knows? I don't know. Basically, it was a letter, don't burn my barn down. Please go next door, burn their barn down. Don't burn mine down. And so anyway, you don't have that.
The barn burn after you.
It no longer exists. I don't know if it burned down. Well, you know what? I think he did tell me it did burn down. Maybe he burned it down.
There we go.
It's no longer there. I know that for sure. And he's no longer around either. So granary. Yep. So there's an old granary. Sometimes it's hard to find the old granary. There's a barn down in Niagara that I'm going to write about in my next book, owned by a winery. And the owner of the winery asked me to come and take a look at his barn. He says, I want to take this thing down. I can't spend any money on this thing. I said, you can't take this thing down. It's a double swing main barn. So anyway, long story short, he's turning the granary into wine tasting rooms. And he's now very excited about, he spent a lot of money on that barn and he wants to turn them into wine tasting. I think it's a great idea.
And it was interesting, when you were at our place, you were talking about how the size of the granary
Yes.
is related to.
Yes. So typically granaries would have bins and you build up the bins with boards, little dams as they go up to about maybe 5 feet. And they're often about 4 feet wide, 5 feet wide, maybe 6, but generally about 5 feet. And they're not that long, they might be 5 feet. So, well, anyway, 5 by 5 is 125 cubic feet. And that's exactly 100 bushels. And I believe, and there's some barns, there's a barn we just showed here. I believe they had different bin sizes and said, okay, that's 100 bushels. It was easy to calculate. 100, that's 125, that's 75, that's 150. Because they knew, not everybody knew how to multiply, do all the calculations. I think they had these things as different sizes for easy calculating.
And because I used to be in the granary with the thrashing machine, so those boards, as the grain built up, we had to keep lining up.
Yep.
more. And if we wanted to separate all, we always had oats, so it already open, but you could divide the army wheat and oats.
Yes. Yep.
And then you reversed it when you
Okay.
ran it out.
Yes. And did you put grain in the alleyway in? So they quite often there'd be an alleyway in, there'd be a bin, and a bin.
No,
put
I
any-
was, my home, like where I grew up, was full, half of the barn from the.
Oh, okay.
The back door, and the other side was all for the loose feed. And I was wondering, what is the proline plate that people used to talk about when they built barns?
Furline paint. Steve, you're gonna, go ahead.
Well, you recently showed a picture of what we call a cat post.
Yeah, can you go scroll down?
That would go to support a beam halfway up the roof. That's the permanent post.
Oh,
That's,
Good. Yeah, that's, sometimes you'll hear, you pronounce it purloin. I've heard that as well, but it's purlin, Purlin.
I just know by oral, per line, it
Yeah.
sounded like per line.
Yeah, and I've heard purline as well, yeah, yeah. Good. Again, a hay door here. That's what we were talking about with your hay door, but I don't think they flipped down, did they? I'm actually not even sure.
I don't really know how.
Were there hinges? Were there hinges?
I don't know how they open those.
No.
This is my mom's
Oh, okay, there you go. No family resemblance. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they probably swung out. Probably got hinges. Maybe they don't have anything now.
They might actually, lift out behind there. I think
Okay.
some of them might have worked across behind it.
Okay, hay fork and a trolley. Again, it's definitely in that barn. Before you go, another way to tell an old barn is if the rafters are hewn or not. And you don't see that very often, that if they're hewn, it's a very old barn. Down in Niagara, we actually see tapered rafters. So they're actually narrower at the top than they are at the plate. So they actually are wide and then they get narrower on the way up. I mean, there's a structural reason maybe, but that was a lot of work. Why they did it, I'm not quite sure. But they would be as much as 10 inches deep at the plate and maybe only 6 inches up here. And then you'll also see pinned rafters. I don't know if you see them up here or not, Steve. We see them where they're pinned. They come together in a lap joint and the pin goes through. And they would put pins. I didn't see this at first. They would put one pin going, they put a whole bay of pins going facing east. And the next bay, they would face west. Then they'd face east, and they'd face west. And that was, I believe, that over time, as the wind played on the barn, some would try to come out one way and some would come out the other. And so it was a way to stop the barn from loosening up entirely. Now that's my theory, but I think it was clever. It was. King post, I don't see these very often down in Niagara, but maybe they're more common up here. I don't see them. Not that common. Although there is a barn that's going to be, that was taken down in Markham, that's going to be put back up at a place called the Brown Homestead. Anybody's, they have a website, they're really into old stuff. They're bringing a barn from Markham, they're putting it up on the site next year. And I believe it has king posts in it. And it's a really old barn. I think it's like 1810. It's really old. And I think it was a swing beam barn, but it's gone, swing beam barn. I think that swing beam was massive, massive. Marriage marks. I don't know if you see them up here or not. We do see them down in Niagara. These are a message from the carpenter. This is bent number 3. 1, 2, 3. See little carve outs here? They scribe it, then they put these, so this is number 3. So that, this is actually on the swing beam. So that beam would go with a post that has an equal number of those marks on it, so that the people assembling the bent on the ground would know that this goes with this goes with that, and then they push the whole frame up. Don't see it very often, but that's a pretty good indicator of an old barn.
Where would we find this? Where would those?
They would be right where a post and a beam would attach. And they'll be right there, within a foot, they'll be right beside each other. And I've seen one barn had 10 different bents, and every bent had this, no, it didn't have 10 bents. It had 5 bents, but it had 10 different numbers, and I think there were different numbers on either end. It's bizarre, right up, so they sometimes what you'll also see is Roman numerals. So that'd be I, V, V, VI, all the way up to X. That's within this one barn. So you see this or the other. Again, mortise and tenon joint. Yeah. Oh, so here it is. Mortise and tenon joint with pins greater than 1.5 inches in diameter. Yes. So you don't have that. This picture I took in a place, I don't know if you've ever come down to Niagara. On the QEW, there's a huge operation called Shank Greenhouse. Seen that? So this is actually in their barn. They had no idea they had a whole barn. I'm trying to convince them to turn it into their office. It's full of junk, but it's a beautiful barn, and just with a 24-inch swing beam that's 14 inches wide, 30 feet long, tapered, 2-inch pins. These are 2 inches in diameter. You'll notice that they're also octagonal. That's how they did these pins. They're octagonal. So when they drive them in, they really stay in. Just a beautiful barn, just magnificent barn. Needs some work, but it's magnificent. Bow ladders, we see those in a lot of barns. They're quite often missing, but you have them. You have a couple, at least a couple. Mowstead walls. Sometimes you see a wall beside the threshing floor. You don't have it. Scarf joints. And you actually do have scarf joints, but their scarf joints are on the posts. I think the posts must have rotted at some point and they replaced them. So they have a scarf joint. And there's different ways that these look together. Some of these are really elaborate how they've done it. They put pins. This one is actually not the best. This is in a barn down in Niagara. Swing beam. You don't have a swing beam, but this is a very typical old 1825 to 1835 construction with the swing beam tapered, narrow at one end, narrow at the other end, braces, vertical strut, and a tie beam. And so the barn from Ohio only has the swing beam, nothing else, no tie beams, nothing, one swing beam. And that's partly because the sidewall is only 12 feet, which is unheard of down our way. Symbols, fertility symbols. This is a fertility symbol. And you'll see those on beams quite often. Quite often you'll see them near the granary. But that's a fertility symbol. Quite often they have a whole bunch of punch marks on them. They're for fertility of crops and animals, and I believe humans as well. And there are also some religious ones. They're consensus centric circles. Do I have a picture of that? I have a picture in my book of all these concentric circles, and you'll see those on really old barns. Sometimes they're hard to see. I've highlighted them in color so you can see them in the chapter on that. But
What are the punch marks from? Like a mistake or part of it?
no, I think it's part of it. I think it's part of it. I'm not entirely sure what the punch marks are, but I'll leave it to your imagination.
Prop in the barn.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but it's fertility of all things. Let's just put it that way. And that's actually in a barn down in Niagara. Temporary joist holes in the back of swing beams, and we also see it on other beams as well. Holes on the back side to put some temporary joists in, put more hay, loose hay or something up above there. No floor, generally speaking, no floor, just open. Quite often, quite close as a foot apart. I don't know, do you see those up here at all? You do up here? Yeah.
So would that go like across to the wall behind it?
Yes, so this is a swing beam, so it goes all the way from this wall, all the way over to this wall, no posts underneath.
And then where do the joists?
So the other side, interestingly, there's no holes in the beam on the other side. They go straight across and they sit on top of the beam over there. So the swing beam is actually at a different level than that beam. They go across, so it's like this. The joists go across and they sit on top of this, not even into it, because you wouldn't be able to get them in, right? Can't get it in. So, but sometimes these are really close, and they actually damage the beam. If it's hardwood, they splits. You'll see big splits in the beam right through these things. Tongue and groove floorboards. So if you notice here, this little tongue and this little tongue, they're actually not part of the board. In the old days, their tongue and groove boards were grooved on both sides. And they put them together with the grooves together, and they punch a spline down between them. So it was actually a different piece of wood, not even connected to the floor. And a good place to look for these is on the thrashing floor. Most likely is where you can see it. Wagon rack lifters, we see them all over the place down in Niagara. I don't know if you see them up here as well. I think you do, maybe not to the same extent. They started coming in and probably around 1880 or so. I found a really interesting time that I spent with a fellow whose great grandfather used to build rack lifters, and he had a little lunchbox demonstration rack lifter that he would take around to the neighbors and say, I can build you one of these. And it was a working model. It's very interesting. I've never seen anything like it before. It should be in a museum because I think it's a one-off. I don't even think it exists. Like, I don't think anybody, I've never seen one like this before in a museum. Let me just show it to you here. Um, I can't remember exactly where it is. Yes, there it is, right there. So it's a tabletop unit that actually works. And he had little winding things and would lift this little toy rack lifter right off the floor. Here, just pass that around, you can see it.
The salesman saying,
I think it was a sales thing. I think he went around, I think he took it around to people and at night with a with his lamp and said, I could build you one of these things. And anyway, it's a one-off, but it's fantastic. And here's what it was. They would lift the rack right off of the gear, the wagon gear, off the wheels. They lift it right up probably with wheat sheaves in it or loose hay, right up to the ceiling. This thing, I asked the owner, I said, do you ever remember that thing being used? He says, no, I've never seen it being used. And the guy's 80 years old. And he says, I've never seen it used. So it's been sitting up there for 75 years, this wagon rack. And anyway, there's a lot of them out there, surprisingly. Wooden pinned floorboards. We will see this in really old barns where there's no nails, that they'll actually put a wood pin into it on the threshing floor. I don't know if they're rare to find these, but we do see them down the oldest barns.
Would steel nails have started to be used?
Well, they had nails even in the 1830s and 40s, but that was mostly for putting boards on and things like that, not big connectors like this. Steve, help me here. When did
I've never seen that.
Yeah, you never see anything like that. Yeah.
I've heard of how.
This particular barn was built about 1850. I would say this would be unusual to find in a barn after Confederation. I don't think it's.
But I would assume that wood hay would be a lot easier than metal.
Yeah.
I've got some square nails and they're tiny little things.
Yes.
That wouldn't hold anything.
No, that's true. That's what I mean. There weren't any big things like that.
But wood would be more appropriate.
Yep. Sometimes initials can be really helpful. If you find something like that, this happens to be in the Shank barn, and current owner Lou Shank. His father's name was Lou Shank. His grandfather's name was Lou Shank, and so anyway, he says, "Yeah, that's my grandfather." But then you find really neat things in here like this. So John Youngblood and St. Catherine's, yes, St. Catherine's. So you see some neat things. And those can be really helpful on aging a barn. So in one of the granaries that I was in, there's a whole bunch of calculations on the wall. The calculations are in dollars and in pounds. So pounds changed to dollars around 1850. So it's a pretty good idea how old the barn is, because why would they be using pounds if it was built in 1880? Why were they using dollars if it was in 1830? So you get an idea. Ventilators on the side walls. Vertical queen posts. I call these vertical queen posts. Others call them king posts, but I call them vertical queen posts, which is what I believe you have in your barn. Some people will call these king posts. I consider king posts something that goes up to the peak, but that's what I would call it. Okay, good. Oh, here's the picture of the barn was on the ground. So the beam is all rotted on the underside, but it's actually up in the air, and it didn't get rotten sitting up in the air. it was rotten from the stone that it used to sit on the ground. Might have been some water was pooling there or something. So that was my clue that barn had jacked up. Stable walls that are 18 inches thick or greater than 18 inches thick. Thicker the walls kind of is an age thing, you know, the what thicker, the older, not necessarily. But what did we decide? Is yours 18 or 24?
Sure.
I think they're 24. I think you can see. Mark that off. Curry comb holders or some kind of opening in the wall where they would store some stuff, maybe some medicine or things like that. We believe there's one. Do you have the picture of it? So there's a neat picture at Emily's of a little cupboard in the side of the wall, just like a medicine cabinet, and it actually had medicine in it. And what did we decide? I actually looked that up and I forget what it was, but it's for lice.
Yeah.
Something.
Albumite.
Mice. And apparently this veterinarian, there's still a vet by that name up your way.
Yeah, so I think that JB Ardell was the artist Ardell's.
Cool.
Couldn't see from back here, but there were a door on that tiny hole or not?
Yep.
Ones I
So
remember
that's the
from
door.
home, they were just open.
Yeah.
Here's the hinges. Do we have the picture of it open? I took one, but maybe we don't have it. That's right here.
I don't know why it won't open.
Oh, well. It opens up. I don't think it's been open for a while.
Yeah, had in the past, but it's pretty popular.
Gutters. You know, quite often the old gutters have been covered up over time or filled in, but they can be a pretty good indicator of what was going on in that barn, you know, whether there was dairy cattle in there or something else.
There's actually better.
They would be for any kind of cow.
Yeah.
But we only
Yeah.
had beef. We had
Yeah.
easy to clean.
Yes. And did you have a litter carrier?
We did. Yes.
Now I saw, so I can remember using these as a kid. We used to chase each other around around the barn. And these things were accidents waiting to happen. Like these things were just waiting to rip your fingers off. You had chains and stuff. They're very dangerous. You'd never be allowed to put those things on the market the way they were in those days. But nevertheless, just before Christmas, I was in an old barn that was being taken down by an Amish team workers. And they were looking for some of these things. And they actually found one in the barn nearby, and it was like new. It had never been used. I didn't even know you could buy these things. You can still buy them.
A friend of ours had one at a sale. It didn't go for much, but.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Took a certain type of rock.
Yes.
Yeah. We still have the track.
Oh, yeah. I'll see tracks in the barn, and often the owners don't know what it's for. You know, stanchions, you know, lots of barns still have old stanchions in them. Stove wood walls, you'll see those, they were built somewhere time around the First World War or after that. Or it was actually wood in mortar. And, yeah, I think it was a fad. You don't see too many of those. Tapered windows, so they'd be tapered to let more light in. So the taper, they wider inside than outside. And so you actually have that in your barn, but not every old barn has tapered windows.
Therefore, windows common,
What's that?
windows just in general, that they can, especially in the foundation, are windows common.
Are windows common in the foundation? Yes, I would say. Although the number that you have is blocked. I think we decided that there's 3 on each wall.
Got 3 on one wall, 2 in burns. Then windows and doors.
Right.
But they'd be deep still.
Oh, yeah, they're very deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're very deep. That's where we used to store our DDT, on there. That's what we used to store it in the barn. Those, you know, the fly spray things, you remember those things?
No.
The more dangerous things that we used to suck in and, as kids, it's no wonder my hair's white. Thresholds, sometimes with stone, that would be a very old barn. You see that in barns the odd time. And then anything else? Is there anything else you, like, you just want to put in there, some message to the future, you? Or something you want to put in there, you just put it in, that's where you put in. Can't even remember what your comment was, but, you know, is there a question on it? You could put it in there.
And Bren pointed out, there's lantern holders, just hooks in the barn every so often. And
Lantern
I've used them for my solar lanterns when we have power outages, and it covers, where they're placed, it covers quite a bit of barn area. So it's just a metal hook hanging down from the beam, away from a lot of things, but you just hang your lantern there and it gives you quite a large area of light.
I've never seen that.
They're a wider hook. At my barn, it's a wider strap of metal, just about that far off the beam.
When I bought my place 35 years ago, there's not, the whole place, the house and everything, there was no hiker there. So I put it in, but on the walls in the barn, there's called bottom writing. And also little plates, big beams, and that's what they lanterns.
Well,
So
that's,
a lot of them had, almost all of the beams, and they all with plates on them. They let, so there was really a separation between the lantern and the wall. And if we were milking, that the light would be there, and then when you separated, you took it, but separate. So the light was just carried it with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was in front of the staunch, on the corner where your hay
Or
came down the chute.
behind the, like our, behind the house.
Yeah, I think there was some
Yeah.
behind too.
Yeah, and then, you know, so you only had 1 or 2 lanterns, it wasn't like all of it out.
No, you just take it with it.
everywhere, so you could. Yeah. Cover it well.
so was your separator a hand crank one or was it
Oh,
electric?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I had 4.
So,
All move parts.
so
100.
not everybody will know what a separator is in this room.
Little discs that
Yes.
knew how to take the cream this way and the milk this.
Yes, and they were triangular, looked like little spaceships. They were little on top of each other.
And they were in order. You had to have the right one at the bottom and the right one at the top.
Yes,
So I always paid attention, so I guess that's why I got the girl.
I often wonder how those ever got cleaned well enough. And they'd never pass food safety issues today, probably.
Well, I don't know. I think my mother was pretty up on being clean.
When I think about pouring milk into the milk cans, and I even remember milk cans. You know, we'd have a cloth there to keep the flies out and stuff, right? I mean, clothes pegs holding it on. I think, wow, today, I don't know.
Sitting at the end of the road, perhaps.
Sitting at the end of the road, and the strongest person in the whole municipality was the milkman who could throw milk cans up, you know, the truck. I was always amazed at how strong those guys were. But anyway, those are days that are long gone. But if you want to put a picture of a separator in there, that's a great thing, because most people have no idea what's a separator, no idea. There's There's a fellow in St. Catharines, he has one on his front step as a relic. And I said to him, I said, does anybody ever ask you what that thing is? He says, no, they have no idea. No idea.
Mine actually is in the museum of art.
Okay, there you go. Good.
Can
Good.
you add multiple photos as you're going through, or is it only one in that each, spotted as?
At the end, you can put up to 4 photos. And you'll see at the end. I mean, we try to give you as many options as possible, but we don't want 100 photos because it just takes, I can't imagine how much room this will be.
Yeah.
And then all kinds of latches, if you've got some neat latches out there, we haven't got all the examples of them. There's so many latches out there, homemade ones. Ingenious ones, they're just. You couldn't possibly show all the examples of all the different latches out there. You said we had the rollers on the granary, didn't you?
Oh,
On the door,
the track.
a little track. And some of them are very ingenious. They're very weighted very interestingly, they would just perfectly drive perfectly. Rings on the wall, they could be for hitching a horse to, or maybe a gate, or maybe something else. Different pintles you'll see out there, or hanging a gate on. You'll see these all over the place. There's different kinds of pintles. Forged nails, if they're square, you can quite often tell the age of the barn based on that. Different kinds of gudgeons. I didn't take these photos. Will Samus took all these photos. I can't remember if you had any. Yeah, you had some. That's great. Hasps and hooks. Different kinds of hinges, different kinds of handles. Will, one of our directors, says this is a rope making device. I didn't know they had such a thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made 1,000 ropes when I was a kid. At a baler twine, braiding,
Winding.
six strings. You make them 100 miles long. And
You never been to the Marshfield Heritage Festival?
I have never been to the Marshfield.
You would have loved it.
I know I'm gonna love it.
They've even got one of those barns with the school.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yep.
And rope making equipment.
I've
and
never seen a rope maker, so I
They
see
do
that.
it for the kids.
Really?
Yeah.
And it just wouldn't be
With
the
baler
same
twine.
with plastic, the other twine. Be the same.
They get that size.
Other types of innovative hardware. So if you've got something, you just tell us what it is. We're nearing the end here. Any additions to the original barn? And we've tried to give as many examples as possible. Quite often there's a milk house. Now there is a little building connected to yours, but apparently it wasn't a milk house. Front. It could be an old milk house, could have a little cistern in there where the milk cans used to go in with cold water. An old silo, even if it was just a foundation, a lean-to or another barn running the same way. So you've got another barn with a roof line running in an L. Feed room, workshop, wells. Quite often there was a well right in that little cistern area. Root cellars. We see root cellars down. We have a root cellar in one of the barns that I wrote about. It is 14, this is under the bridge, it goes up into the barn. It is 14 feet wide, it's 8 feet high, and it's 28 feet long. It's almost as big as this room. And it's a Roman arch. And it's just magnificent. And I think probably the first person in it in, I don't know, 50 years. Even the owner says, I never go in there. Never, no reason to go in there. It's beautiful. There was another one in a barn. I said, I think you have a root cellar under there. He says, what's that? I said, well, it's, the total. So I went out with a probe and I found it for him. He didn't even have an opening into it. Now he's turned it into it's on in a winery. He's turned it into a tasting room. And you just don't know you have them. So corn cribs, carriage houses, granaries, connected. That's not your granary. Cisterns. So none of those apply to you. So then there's lots of photos like this. Who recognizes a photo like this they used to have of their farm?
Oh, from the airline.
From the air, yeah. I see hundreds of these things across the province in people's offices and stuff. They're beautiful. These, I think, are one of the most valuable resources for OBP to have. Because I just don't, there are so many of those out there and they tell a lot of story. So this actually is my home farm. A photo taken in 1954. None of it's there anymore. Not a lick of it's there anymore. But, you can see the manure pile, the litter carrier track, the gambrel roof barn, the old house where I used to live. And that picture was taken before I was born. So those are valuable. So if you have a picture like that, just take a picture of it or scan it and put it in, because that is worth 1,000 words or more.
They weren't cheap, you had to buy.
No, they weren't cheap. They weren't cheap, and they were taken by pilots that came back from the Second World War. And they had all these pilots, the ones that weren't dead. They needed jobs, and so they started taking photos, and next thing you know, and they're still doing them.
Yeah. Buy the other here.
And you can buy them in years. They'll actually put a collage together of over the last 60 years or something. Because I talked to somebody at the outdoor farm show about it. It would be really helpful if you put a aerial view from Google Maps of your barn, because it tells you the orientation, it tells you size, you can work out size, dimensions, those things. So those are really, really helpful. So Emily has done just that, and she's putting in that photo right into the study. This is optional, but if you have a sketch or something that's in there that you can draw, it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have an architect's degree to do it. Draw a sketch more or less to scale and show where stuff used to be in there. Might be very helpful. So I don't know if that's something you're going to do or thinking, well, probably not. You haven't done it yet. But if you want to, you could do that.
Just on that, put it in the file. It won't show up, but the photo will show up. But
Right.
I checked with Randy
It's there?
and it's there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so the point there was, not everybody will know what a PDF versus a JPEG is, but a PDF, generally speaking, you would not be able to do anything with a PDF, modify it or anything like that. You can, but it's not the easiest. But if you do a sketch and you scan it on your printer or something, you can scan it as a PDF or as a JPEG. So if you can, I would say do it as a JPEG. But if it doesn't allow you to do that, do it as a PDF. Or just take a picture of it with your phone. Put it in. Current use of the barn, we've tried to give you all the different possibilities there are. But it may not be on the list. And so it's a livestock barn. But it might be something else. Yeah. And this is the final section. We'd like you to tell us a little fun fact about your barn. It could be anything you remember. I used to remember swinging from the rope and, jumping in the hay. That's could be your story. Or I remember the day that my brother was, got caught playing with matches and then we burned the barn down or something, or whatever. He got a thrashing, my dad. So, oh, okay, so what have you written? So you want to read it out?
Yeah, so the lady who owned the barn before us was Minnie Sheridan, and she was almost 100 when she passed away, and she had lived there her whole life. And her mother was actually the one who originally bought the farm in payment for work that she had done. She did midwifery nursing and work. And I think May was a single mother with Minnie and pretty cool lady, and Minnie did a lot of the farm work herself because her husband wasn't back
Oh, wow. Cool. That's very interesting. And she was a bit. That's cool. Well, good. So you can put anything you want in there, up to 250 words. It's probably characters. Yeah, so you can get so many characters, probably 2,000 or 2,500, something like that. You got lots of room there. Please submit up to 4 historical photos. So again, this is my home farm. That's actually my great aunt Emma and my great uncle Jimmy. And that's the barn. And this is right after they got married. They got married in 1901. Barn was built in 1894. Yeah, so if you've got an old photo, doesn't matter if it's good quality, just stick it in there. Did you find any old photos? No. No? Might not be any there. So you can put up to 4 photos. And they don't have to be historical photos. If you've got something you think is just a perfect thing to put in here, then drop it in there. Doesn't have to be from the past. Could be current, could be anything. And then if you've done something, then we, try to explain what those photos were. And then finally, the People's Archive of Rural Ontario, Carroll, is a University of Guelph project with an objective to collect stories about rural Ontario. So we support them. If you go to their website, you can see what it's all about. They've got oral histories, they've got written stuff, they got photos. They're just getting going. They've only been going a couple of years, but they hope to collect an awful lot of stuff from people about what they do in rural Ontario. Everything from soup to nuts. So if you're interested in that, click yes, and we'll try to pass on your information, but you're almost better to go straight to them rather than go. And then we do tours once in a while. We haven't been doing much yet, but if you're interested in including your barn in a tour, let us know. Talk to your regional rep, talk to Steve. And then for some very special barns that are out there, we'd like to study some of these barns in more precise detail. And so this is the barn in Erin Township. There was a fellow who just called me up one day, he says, I'm an architect, and this barn I thought was significant, so I drew it all up, just like building plans, so that somebody could rebuild this barn. Now, the barn's in really dangerous shape, and so it's going to fall down. Like, it's just a few months or a couple of years from falling down. But he's gone out and drawn everything and made up plans for it. So, because it's a special barn. And if there are some special barns, it could be a round barn, it could be an octagonal barn, it could be something that's got some unique features in it. It's really historically significant. Maybe it's a one-off. That could be something that a guy like this or others could actually draw up. So here's some examples of it. I've got a whole file. It's a big file. So if you're interested in including that, let us know. And then if somebody else did this for you, you should put their name in there. So if Steve was doing somebody's barn, he would put his name in here, contact information, because he's the guy who actually did it, and he's the person we should contact. And then tell us what you think. Was this hard to do? Was it easy to do? Was it crazy? I wish I'd never opened it up, or I showed it to my friends. Tell us what you think. And when you're done, you hit submit survey. So up until now, you can go back You can keep it open as long as you want. But when you hit that baby right there, you're done. So if you feel you're done, you can hit submit survey. And I'll find out from Randy if it's there. It should be there now. So
So you
it's-
can't add to it, like, let's say that Emily finds historical photos. Now, and
No.
later on, okay?
No.
It's done, it's done.
It's done, it's done now. Anything can be added, right? But she'd have to open it up again and say, this is new information, whatever, but no, for all intents and purposes, it's done.
But for, if you submit this, your location of the barn and your name and that is all private. It doesn't
Yeah.
go to anybody.
Nobody's getting it except for us. But it's intended for researchers, future studies. So if we have, it's probably going to be students. My guess is mostly it's going to be students. We think that some of the things that OBP members will get are summaries of what's in the information. So that's something we want to start doing this summer. We'll have a couple of summer students. They're going to start analyzing some of this stuff. Say, oh, there's some neat things that we're seeing here, right? It takes a while to wade through all this information. So that's about 101 barns now, or so in. But until just last year, we only had like 20 barns. Very small.
What are you looking for? What are some of the objectives of this collection of data? What are you trying to do?
Okay, so that's a good question. We don't even know all the things we can actually do with that information, but part of it is to give us a background for information about what's out there. Where are barns disappearing? Where do we need help to actually see? Are there regional differences? Sometimes when you're doing this information, you don't even know all the things you could possibly want in the future. But the idea is to try to save as many of these barns in a digital form for future use as possible. So if you've got some good ideas about what could be used for,
You actually.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
So in our barn, in the last 3 years, that all of my ancestors go back to Priceville. But our old barn, we're not 100 acres, we doing reclamation.
Yeah.
24,000 trees last year. But the barn on a solid or maintenance of the barn. We want to maintain the barn just because. There's no electricity, we're not putting electricity to the barn.
good idea,
We don't-
actually.
We don't want to risk that. Foundation needs to be replaced. Our south wall was collapsing last year. It took us 13 months to find somebody to come to fix it.
Yep.
So getting to my point that there's nobody around, is all retired. All the Mennonites who would have done it were all retired. And so it took that long to find a couple of young guys who were willing to help us pop up. So I designed it. We figured out a way to brace the
Yeah.
wall, the wall. That it's one of these things where it's a lost craft.
Yes,
So far.
I agree.
And it's a challenge finding somebody who is go of our barn or out. That is a challenge finding someone. to do it. I think that's tragic. That because people look at the values all around us, we see the farms. I'll call it that, even in the years we've been up here, the farms that were there are gone. Like last.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that to me would be the big thing. Like, there's a college in Kentucky called Berea College, actually will full program.
Right.
You get a degree with it's a lots part of it. So
Yeah.
just one college in the United States that maintains that craft is really cool. So that there's an opportunity, maybe, I don't know.
So in February, I gave a presentation on old barns to Algonquin College in Perth. And there's a timber framing course there. And lots of young kids, surprisingly, lots of young kids involved in this, and they're all learning, you know, how to use an axe, how to do this, how to do more. They build stuff. It's actually very practical. So there's a bunch of people. I said, you've got a job. You could actually create a job out of this, just fixing parts. You could, you know, if you're smart about it, you could actually make a career out of it. But you're right, it's hard to find people who know how to do that. We actually on our, I don't know if you've been on our website or not, but we do have a list of contractors we're trying to expand it. Find out who wants to be on there, to be called upon to fix up whole barns. It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
That I had some, that's working on my article. Solar, and I found so many. So, water coming in,
Yeah.
all the clocks, everything's.
Yeah, ours, it's just, you know, it's so windy where we are. The barn is pushed off, so our west wall or east wall or side walls. And then the idea of it, proper wall, we gotta dig out the bank and put it into the proper wall, all the stones. Actually, put in the proper walls where we're gonna salvage the stone. We're gonna clad the concrete, it's supposed to say. Yeah. The modern. Right.
All the clocks, so. It's already down. That's. Lane 4. Yep. Yeah.
So there's lots of information on the Ontario Barn Preservation website about, you know, repair and construction, all that kind of stuff. So that's one source of information. There is a list of contractors trying to expand it. But we also, I know just from my experience that the more you know about your barn, even going through this thing, the more you look at your barn, the more likely you are to save that. Because you understand the barn, you actually find things in there. I don't know if you learned that today or not, but there's lots of times you'll find out things you didn't even know about.
Well, I did the same thing, right? Documented the whole barn.
Yeah.
6 summers ago.
Yeah.
During COVID, and I drew it all in AutoCAD, so I. created
There you go.
the barn,
Perfect.
just so that we would have that, so I can send it out.
Yeah. That's exactly good idea.
Do you find anything really unique in your barn?
Well, I'm a, I've never had. Like. But it's interesting, it's really looking at the construction detail. I mean, while you're here, I'm going through photographs to remind myself that, I find it's just the construction is fascinating. I love just seeing that all the beams were hewn with that. I love looking at that. The underside of the barn is interesting where they've shaved 2 sides of the trunk and we have bark on the other 2 sides.
Yep, it's flat, so it's flat.
Right, so but it's interesting to look at construction methodology, the size of beams. That's all large tamarack, it's all local. And that to me is fascinating, just to see how things were made.
Strength that would be required and the sweat that was created, I'm sure, during all that.
No permits required or engineers design.
So if you were to, if you have a CAD drawing of it, so you can look at it in different views, you should put a picture, you should, like, if you do this,
Yes, I am.
you should put a JPEG of what you've done. Right
We've
in
also
there.
done that with our drone, so I've actually flown around. the whole
Perfect.
barn.
Perfect.
We have images up at the very,
Yep.
the piece of the barn. We've done that too with the drone, so then we also have views from all different parts of the property. Which is great, we just, this is documented, need to try and do a photograph. Yeah.
And it also shows the topography.
It does, yeah, in the land, because it was built into a hill, this was old
Yeah.
dark, so, and again, so again, there's things like where we are, because a lot of the barns, your point, that a lot of the barns that, a lot of our neighbors, and a lot of the barns, and the details are identical, because it's like the same fruits, it's from farm to farm to farm to farm to farm, and then everything is built farm. So there's 2 doors down, or 2 farms down from us, Park Nowak, her barn is beautiful. That-
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
It's the largest barn in West Gray. And her house was the
Yeah.
original post office.
I think we used a couple pictures in this thing from her barn.
But that, I mean, ideally, she uses a barn. She uses a barn, but it's great to actually see that's in your barn, you use your barn too.
Yeah.
That, I'd like to, part of this, my last comment, that have like advocates for the research that you're doing is really important, most languages, that, this is where you've gone and you've done other parts. There are a lot of people who don't have the time
No.
or the confidence to do it.
I agree.
That and if you haven't, that's ideal to set up that network. I mean, I have a whole lot of free time.
You could do it. You could
But
do
to
it.
actually do that, I just spent, this is why I was asking, if I haven't done hours yet, I will do it probably next month. Maybe need something to do on Saturday. But my neighbors, I have no problem with my neighbors content. Your mark. Then once you do.
It'd be perfect. That's exactly what we want.
But then we have a snapshot, even in principle too, that to get something within our general geographic region, then we actually have a record of those barns and to create the threads that connect all those barns together. That should.
See how really consistent they are.
That's exactly, that's really.
And that's the project we're doing, overall. Houses.
If they don't, school like me, I can't get in. I don't, they have high speed across the road, I can't get it. So I'm limited, I can do stuff on my phone, but I can't. I'm off the grid as far as, I'd love to do it, but there's no way I can. Do it.
Heather's is kind of a unique barn because it has a breezeway through the center of it.
Yep.
At the bottom.
And so I've got two sections, I've got the main gate, and under, there's a front portico as well. And somebody was there and he printed a old, like where the barn board wasn't installed, this fence.
Right.
He said, look at that, they used to drop all the way down into this big front portico, huge cistern. And then there's taps inside, and that's the floor.
Mhm.
Cistern was, I live in a log cabin as well. So it was a cistern in that as well.
Is there, where are you? What?
I mean, Glenelg, so not that far, but. And you know where the entrance is? That road, I'm on that road.
So you can read there?
Oh, okay. We're at 23 in South.
Oh.
So I'm just there.
Again, no, it's just. Some 1 kilometer west of the. City side.
But I think that's kind of initiative.
That's the,
Could be.
is that where a lot of slaves came? Glenelg? Is that Glenelg?
That's price building.
Priceville, but
Yeah, but
Glenelg
also
as well?
down by the gas station. When I first moved there, this is sign calling the parents.
Yeah.
That's sign's long gone, part of history, but when I moved there, that's there, so yeah.
So I actually thought about doing that where Louisiana kind of told us that we should create these whole pockets of people who are very.
Yes, yes. Have we thought about it? Yes. Have we done anything about it? No.
Yeah.
We're a small collection of barn volunteers. I encourage you to become a member and help people like Stephen. The idea was you can either send out an expert, a barn expert, and get 100% on 10 barns a year. Or you can send out an army of people who are armed with a little bit of information and do 1,000 barns a year. You know what I mean? So that's what the whole idea is. Try to get people to record their own barns, even if it's not perfect. We're not looking for perfection,
I make it very easy.
but we're trying to make it easy. That was the whole point. And you know how hard it is to make it easy? It's not easy. It took us a long time to actually get to this point. It's amazing, and it's still not perfect, right?
Bring out a virus.
Anyway, thanks for your attention. That's a long afternoon, but thanks for your attention and you know, we're
Thanks for contributing to your barn.
yeah, it was perfect. It's a lot warmer in here to do it here rather than do it in the barn, which was my original intent. But
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Love talking about old barns.
Show our appreciation by around the clock.
One more little reminder, lots of coffee. If you're welcome to chat for a minute, if you want, but
Next year. Thanks, everybody.
You, I would say there was a few years ago, I was in Sudbury, Maine. I went to the art gallery in, Sudbury. And there's artists who do scaled versions of our Ontario barns. So layer porcelain.
Oh, 3D things.
So she was building, so people would hire her, and she had some part of exhibitions. That that she did on her Ontario scaled down. Porcelain. So you might want to just call the Sudbury Museum and ask what that was.
Steve, can you make a note on that? Okay, can you bring that up at the meeting next week? That's a good idea. We actually get, there's surprisingly a lot of people out there who paint and draw barns. And so we've had people, there's a guy who lives around the corner from me. He's an amateur, really good. And he's got this collection of art that he's done and he doesn't know what to do with it. And he's only about 10 people have seen it, but it's a beautiful collection of barns. I said, well, maybe we could be part of that archive of that stuff, right?
A lot of doing
And so-
fundraiser for the group.
Yeah.
On Instagram, a lot of people just take their.
Yes.
They don't know, that there's a great inventory of structures.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we want to have a site on the website where you can click on and look at this collection from Joe, whatever. So that maybe the same thing with the and that person might actually end up getting work out of that.
I think that's what people were hiring art initiator to make sculpture of. Porcelain.
Well, that's exactly right. I think there's actually a market out there. There's people who have more money than all of us together who can afford to pay somebody to do it, because it's not easy to do that. Not easy to do that. And what a great legacy of your barn, right? Especially if somebody in the family built it. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I please get her in touch with OVP. Show us a picture of something she's done. What are we talking about? Little things? Or are we talking like scale model things? So at the outdoor farm show last year, a fellow came by and we had a demonstration, like a little tabletop barn. And it was one that I got my son-in-law to make, and it was the same as that schematic right there. It was very simple, very not great. Well, I thought it was great. He says, I could build you one of these things, better than that. And I said, yeah, but we couldn't afford you. Hours and hours and hours it would take. He said, I don't have money. I'll do it for free. So he built, Steve's seen it. He built a scale model swing beam barn. It's the barn in Erin. It's every piece. He did every mortise and tenon joint in real detail, like they're real. He put the pins in. And the thing is, it's this long, it's this wide, and it's this high, and you can walk in, look in it and everything else. It's like a dollhouse. It's magnificent. It's a great way to draw people in. And when we put it out at the farm show or any, people just flock to see it, right? And the kids come in. So if she's got something like that.
I don't know, that's when you look up and see. I put in my phone to see this.
I think that all had a little business called, well.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some wealthy farmers out there, despite what everybody might think. There's some multi-millionaire farmers out there. There you go. Yeah. It's not shared equally, but there's some people with a lot of money who might remember an old barn,
So there still aren't really any grant programs.
Their goal is to get rid of farmland, so why would they want?
Doubt that we're ever gonna see something. But you never know.
I think we had a terrible art education. A lot of work on all of this.
Yeah.
So anybody, can any of the barns be said that it's historic?
Yeah, they can be, yes, they can be. We gotta be careful of that though, because when you designate your barn as historical, you can only do certain, you can't do anything with it, right? And so farmers are reluctant, I would say the vast majority are very reluctant to go that route. So we in OBP have to be very careful that we don't tick off the people who actually own the barns, right? So it's a balancing act, right? If somebody wants to help, that wants to designate their barn, we'll help you do it. But we're not gonna say, don't you dare do anything about that barn, Emily, because we think it should be designated.
You don't have to allow passive access.
No,
I don't think so.
no, it's barn in Realton that's shade, and it is designated as a historic building, and it is a private park.
When I bought my farm, it's got an original log cabin on it. And, so I said, okay, because I didn't want hydro, I didn't want anything next to it. Choice. If I wanted a mortgage, I had to get it right in. So I didn't have the money to do it. So, I needed $20,000 mortgage and I had to spend a lot more money. Anyway, neither here nor there. I thought about designating it and they said, well, we got the A, B, and C, which was okay. But then I would have to, if somebody wanted to see it, on the access. Because they thought it was, I don't know, because log cabin, interesting, want to go see what it looks like. I have to open it.
Oh, boy. Yeah, not everybody's
That was-
comfortable with
maybe
that.
it's not the case now. It's then. So I decided.
Yeah.
You have a question about yours. First, she's asking about. The barns are very different. Older it sounded like we're. Say,
Yes, yeah, but are there barn builders out there? Yes, tons of them. But you mean to build them like old style? Somebody mentioned HFH. Who was it? Was it you that mentioned HFH? Somebody mentioned, anyway, they're out of north of Guelph somewhere. They take down barns, they put up barns.
And it built.
Have you ever talked to them about getting a price?
It's expensive.
Fix our barn, we wouldn't, they take it all down.
Yeah.
Pay the foundation, rebuild it, our quote is 500.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And you might.
That's a different market. That's a different market, but they
and
do
you may not
high-end
think
work.
they built it. I know several people who built brand new ones.
But are there barn builders out there? Canadian Farm Builders Association.
Yeah.
They've been going for 40 years, 45 years. There's a big membership. They build all the big barns all over the place. Where is she? I got a couple here today. She lived down the street. Otherwise, I got a mail. It costs half the.
How much are they here?
They're $65. That includes tax. But if I have to mail them, it's $25 more. It's really heavy. So find out where she's at. If she's on my way home, I'll drop it off. But otherwise, I gotta mail it. I didn't come here to sell books, just so you know, but I do have some. I always carry them with me. Whenever you leave here, take a look at my license plate. before you leave. Have you seen it, Steve?
There were pictures on the,
Oh, were there?
yeah. But why there were pictures?
Well, it's old barns, old barns.
The Cadillac out there?
Yeah, that's the caddy. That's the one. Yeah, yeah, the Escalade. Yeah, that's it. Oh, it's the Subaru out there. So where's this lady from? She's Gray County somewhere. Okay.
Oh. Awesome.
Ospridge, yeah, Ospridge.
Ospridge is down below.
Yeah, I'm going pretty near there. Ospringe, yeah. Yeah, if she gave me her address, tell her I'll drop one off on the way home. And I sign them. That doesn't even cost anything.
If you lodge your barn, like, up by.
You interested?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
but I don't have business.
I went to bring stuff and I didn't bring anything
But
up.
I'm not against.
Steve's good. He's one of our key regional reps who's doing some of these barns. Thank goodness there's guys like Steve to do it.
I'm a bit of a purist in the log house. I've done everything. It was stopped when I bought it. I haven't changed anything. All the electricity is also required. Somebody wanted to really dig it out. Except for the septic system. Walls for that, but, yeah, basically it's, as it is, same with the barn.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's perfect.
Because I don't.
There's nothing like finding an old barn where there's nothing been changed forever. And I've been in a
Somebody might
couple of
have changed
those.
Something, but it wasn't.
See the old buggies there, is like, everything's just like, just stopped.
Did you
One
get
day
that
they
in
walked
the
in.
Niagara area?
Yeah, I've come across some shocking barns. I never would have expected to see them where they are. Never.
There is a difference as you come up in the farm styles from the Niagara area. to
Yes,
here.
yeah, oh yeah, way different. But there's
The American influence.
There's a barn, that's gonna be in my next book. It was built probably, I gauge it around 1818. And everything is hewn in it, even the braces are hewn, which is very unusual. 2-inch pins, it's got everything, lifting pins. Did I show a picture of the lifting pins?
Is that when they jack it up? straight
No,
in?
they're on the inside of the posts. I'm pretty sure it's in there, just to have lifting pinholes. And that's for putting ropes around and winching. That's for early barns, have them, only early barns. They're on the inside of the posts. Not the long side, but on the inside. You put a pin in there and they put ropes and they winch. Yeah, you won't have them in your barn. This barn has every feature of an old barn that I can think of. Yeah.
Do you think that our pioneer forefathers were more advanced in terms of technology and using what they had? But which sometimes seems a bit permanent, but hey, that's what they had. They didn't have skyjacks and all kinds of fancy gadgets.
So the answer is yes. I think they were very ingenious because they had to
But
be.
they were able to survive.
Yes. Well, putting food on the table is a pretty good motivator. If you don't eat, you have to, because those early people, a lot of the people who were early farmers weren't even farmers. They were not even farmers. They came up from the States, for instance. They weren't farmers. Lots of them were, they didn't want to be a farmer at all, but a lot of them ended up having to do it because that's how you put food on the table.
So compare the barns that are here versus where they came from, like England, Ireland,
Yeah.
Scotland. I've only been to Ireland. How different, like, they bringing some of the stuff that they building style that they had there when they came here, or where were they getting the ideas?
I'd say my personal feeling is they got a lot of the information from the Americans who came up here from the States. There were a lot, I mean, we think, oh yeah, the darn Americans, right? But they all came up, like the United Empire Loyalists and others came up after the Revolutionary. Yeah, I think so. And when they got here, you know, when the English really came in the 1830s, you know, big time, they just kind of adopted some of the styles that were already here. And they saw trees that they'd never seen. They didn't even exist over in England or Germany, or any of those places. Those trees were gone 200 years earlier, right? They just thought, well, the trees will never end and we'll just, cut them down and burn them.
And they would have adjusted too for the climate over the years.
Yes.
Because I found
yeah,
an
yeah.
interesting story. I went to Drumheller in Alberta and I found that the local museum more interesting than the dinosaur museum because they started that in the 60s. What they said there was initially they got houses shipped by rail from Toronto to Alberta, but they had the 612 peak roof because we had snow load. But over there, they just have winds and they found them too cold, so they went to flatter roofs. But they got the wood from BC, shipped it to Toronto and then shipped it back. It was the first Royal Homes or Poly Homes that.
Well, you
that
find
went
out
out
the
there.
Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yeah, they got it out of that.
Yeah.
So.
My sister, actually, sister-in-law lives in Saskatchewan, she lives in a Sears house.
Mm.
Really? Sears house?
It was a
Catalog.
house.
Yeah.
But even with like the Ontario cottages, they're all the when they started in the 1850s or 1950s, there were about 45,000 of them built. And but they were basically catalog houses. So ours was one that was a very early one that you knew the budget of the homeowner was what they added on, because the layout is basically the same. Our living room has the window in the front, one window on the side, not two, because they couldn't afford that second window. It doesn't have a front, it doesn't have a little roof over the front door, it doesn't have a front porch, it doesn't have.
That was the tax reason.
Yeah,
If that front door wasn't done, they can't give you.
Not front porch, like it doesn't have a
No.
front porch.
Yeah.
But that's why when they do a door, it's a window upstairs, with a balcony. Window, that,
but those were designed by James Smith for the Canadian farmer. There were 5 plans for the farmhouse. And you could get that plan, the basic plan, out of this bi-monthly magazine. And so the magazine ran, the pictures of the houses and plans from 1864 to 1871. And you just drive around the country and you can go, that's a this, that's a that, that's a that.
that's why it's fascinating looking at brick, you know what,
And it just
where it
depended,
came from, I get brick.
yeah, and it depended upon,
Bricks lasted longer than one.
yeah, well, there were hard bricks and soft bricks, and yellow bricks are from a certain clay loam. There were pockets all over Ontario, and your bricks came in on, wagon loads in the winter. They sledded them in, so they built the frame and then they brick afterwards. So it's quite fascinating.
Someone told me that the yellow bricks in Bruce County were used as weights on the ships. And they, yeah, and that's.
And of course, the most major influx of them is when the railway hit the community. Because that was when they mass shipped them rather than ship them by horse.
So why did you say they have doors, not windows?
That was taxi.
Tax-free.
Actually, if it wasn't finished, then you wouldn't be paying your finished tax. Or if they had, what was it, one place had it, if you had so many windows, you were taxed based on your windows.
And also the
So
number
it
of floors.
closed them up.
The
That's
number
why
of
it's
houses.
a story and a half.
Story and a half, so that's how you got the majority of those cheap farmhouses, which are the story and a half.
versus state, fireplace,
Yeah, and the number of chimneys.
And what's interesting is none of the houses have the same brick. Because the bricklayers decided that when they were actually doing the brick houses.
Yeah,
So every house is completely unique.
and there was a bricklayer down in London area who had a style. That they're all on his houses, and they know because they're only on the houses, parts.
It's fascinating. I think that's this was cool when you look at like the history.
My rabbit.
So if you have a barn, we had the barns years ago, they designed a barn conversion finances for ants. They bought threshing barn, church barn, Great Gadsden, near Hemel Hempstead. Why I remember that address? I have no idea. It's our address. But it was a threshing barn. That's really the house. And so again, it was built, the majority of the house was built in the 70s, or the barn. It was fascinating that work with this.
Yeah.
Plans for it.
Yeah.
So they have to document it all ahead of time. And understand how it was built, have an engineer in, we're going to shore things up for the house, but they're supposed to go all the way up. So that with soaring ceilings upstairs is over 500 here. And it's the half of the walls. Gee, it's unbelievable.
Well,
Well, you go back to the pyramids, they have a millimeter attached together.
It's fascinating.
Some of the stuff in Peru, they purposely contorted the stones to handle the earthquakes, and they're aligned to the solar
Yeah.
equinoxes. Like, and that was without computers, and they just figured it was geometry. Yeah. Fascinating
Well,
topic.
if anybody wants a card, I've got a card here, if anybody wants. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah, good, thanks, Steve. Thanks.
Learn something new at every presentation.
It's a bad day if you don't learn something.
You shut yourself down, do some whole video. There to get it.